Chapter 610. Beautiful Creek of Shengjing sect had always been known as a fairyland on earth. It was the seclusion place of the sect leader Supreme He Tu and a number of supreme elders who lived in seclusion. More than 700 years ago, the sect leader of Shengjing sect was a woman. She built a beautiful hall in Beautiful Creek as her own leisure residence. Because of its unique architectural style and meticulous selection of building materials, it was called a wonder of Shengjing sect by many cultivators. However, in the current environment of the grand competition, the beautiful hall of Beautiful Creek was also requisitioned and became a group of women's residents. Today the most beautiful women in 9 regions gathered here. Every day they were busy with their makeup for the upcoming grand competition. In addition to their beautiful appearance, they also had to cultivate a perfect temperament. Therefore, although there were many people in the beautiful hall, it was usually quiet. It was just that, at the core of the beautiful hall, there came the angry voice of a woman. Wang Lu, that kid is simply insatiable. After receiving the flying sword message from Hai Yun Fan, Taoist Master Miao Yen stomped her feet in anger. What does he think of our beauty contest group? A group of girls that he can order around? Helping him dress up like a group of smelly barbarians is one thing, but now he wants us to form a cheerleading team? We are a beauty contest group, not a group that sells jokes. We don't sell our bodies or our skills, okay? Wu Er, what's the matter with your disciple? Standing next to Taoist Master Miao Yen and being questioned by her was the beautiful girl idol Murong Bingli in Night Charm Phoenix, Yen Yuan, Wu Er, who had formed a popular idol group with her. After taking the letter from Hai Yun Fan, the popular idol glanced at it and then said with a smile, "Isn't this good? A win-win opportunity." Miao Yen asked, "What win-win?" "It's clear that we're doing hard work for him. You're really good at lying through your teeth. Because he's your precious disciple, everything he does is right." "Oh sister, you've wronged me. I'm just stating the facts. Just think about it, as long as we can build a strong cheerleading team and help the lower-level group to successfully challenge the higher-level group, our beauty contest group will immediately become famous in the 9 regions. At that time, no one will say that we are just a group of flower vases. Don't you always say that beauty is a supreme power? I think that's a wonderful saying, and now is a good time to prove it." After hearing what Wang Wu said, Miao Yen thought about it seriously. "You're right. Then should we really set up a cheerleading team for him? Well, aren't there a few girls who are full of energy and have nothing to do? It was also good to let them go over and exercise. At the same time, we can also let the newly joined pure girls learn how to display their charm." While speaking, Wang Wu held the letter and paced back and forth in the room. After a few laps, she snapped her fingers and said, "Oh, that's right, this plan can be further improved." Wang Lu only thought of the positive incentive role of the cheerleading team, but he didn't think that the cheerleading team could also carry out negative incentive. Miao Yen asked, "What is negative incentive?" Wang Wu smiled and whispered in Miao Yan's ear. After listening for a while, Miao Yan's expression changed several times and finally she sighed and said, "You two are really worthy to be master and disciple." "That's right, intelligence and beauty are of the same origin." After sending off Wang Wu, Taoist Master Miao Yen sat in the room for a while, patted her cheek, and then took a deep breath and said, "Well, I did it to prove the power of beauty to the world, to practice my own path, so I didn't do anything wrong. Yes, that's it." After talking to herself, Taoist Master Miao Yen got up and went to the residence of the young girls, and shouted in her unique hearty voice, "Well girls, get up. There's no time to rest, we have a new task soon." Suddenly, the groans and wails of the girls came from the room. "Don't, we just finished the body etiquette special training, we're tired." Miao Yen scolded, "You can't even do a little exercise? I didn't ask you to serve a man. Stop acting like a spoiled child, get up quickly, or else there will be 2 more classes in the evening, and your favorite Sister Wu Er will teach you." "Sister Wu Er? Don't." Suddenly the room was in chaos. A moment later, more than a dozen beautiful women walked out, gorgeously dressed. All of them were stunning beauties carefully selected by Taoist Master Miao Yen from various sects and places. Moreover, they were young and very malleable, and she had high hopes for them. Seeing this beautiful team in panic, Miao Yen gently nodded and said, "Yes, next, you all have a look at this proposal." The group of girls read it one after another, and then their beautiful faces turned pale. "Don't cheer for those barbarians? That's so shameful, and we have to wear that kind of shameless clothes." Miao Yen said, "Beauty can't just stay in self-admiration, it's a kind of power, a magical power. I have taught you the basic skills of beauty before, but that's far from enough. Next, you have to dig out this power with your own hands. You have to show this power to the world and let them understand the value of beauty. But, no buts. If you don't want to do positive motivation, I don't mind putting you in the negative motivation group. A girl timidly asked, negative motivation group, what is it? It's something carefully designed by your sister Wu. If you're interested, I can let you experience it yourself. No, I'm not interested at all. Since you're not interested, just go and be a cheerleader for me. With the roar of Taoist Master Miao Yen, the girls immediately scattered like birds and beasts. They each used their own means to leave the beautiful hall and went to Royal Soldier Sect. After roaring at these little girls, Taoist Master Miao Yen just sighed. Since she became the person in charge of this beauty contest group, she roared every day more than her normal speech. She had almost forgotten how ordinary people spoke. How could there be any beauty in this kind of appearance? However, it was indeed gratifying to see a group of little girls whose understanding of beauty was still rough little by little, moving toward the perfect realm under her guidance. Compared to the pursuit of her own beauty, it was also a pleasure to spread the way of beauty to others, especially to those little guys with superior talent. Taoist Master Miao Yen was praised by many as the #1 beauty in 9 regions, which was of course an overpraise and quite suspected of hype. However, her beauty was indeed recognized by many people. It was just that few people knew that Taoist Master Miao Yen was not a natural beauty. Her current dazzling beauty was completely acquired through cultivation. Therefore, she particularly attached great importance to the cultivation and inheritance of beauty. Alas, I hope that this time, as Wang Wu said, the world can realize the value of beauty, and then more people will devote themselves to the pursuit of beauty. With that, Miao Yen sighed again. Unfortunately, the next thing is to do the most disgusting work. Negative motivation, only she could think of it. With that, she got up and went to another room in the beautiful hall. The waste inside, come out, you also have a task. As soon as she said that, a boiling heat wave hit her face in the room. Taoist Master Miao Yen narrowed her eyes with some displeasure. She was very clear that the scorching sensation was not a real high temperature, but rather the boiling resentment released by the people inside the room. These people were not like those chattering little girls from a moment ago. Any one of them was a powerhouse that could shake a region if placed outside, but now they were trapped in the beautiful hall, suffering indescribable humiliation. Negative motivation. What a genius idea, Sister Xiao Wu. In order to attract the eyes and hatred of the people in the world, you're really going all out. After muttering to herself, Taoist Master Miao Yen once again raised her charming eyebrows and said in a clear voice, "Didn't you hear what I said? What are you waiting for?" One day later, the martial arts arena of Royal Soldier Sect once again became crowded. The incessant noise made the valley look like a pot of boiling oil. It stood to reason that this place, which was dedicated to the training of the fighting faction, should not let too many people in. After all, this was the highlight of the grand competition, and at the same time Royal Soldier Sect had always had a xenophobic tendency. In the previous fights, the overly lively scene made several army leaders of Royal Soldier Sect openly express their dissatisfaction. However, this time, most of the people who came to watch the fight were of high status. This sect's elder, that sect's sect leader, they jointly made a request. Even with the toughness of Royal Soldier Sect, it was inconvenient to forcibly stop them, so they had to let them pass for the time being. As a result, the valley was filled with people. Whether it was those elders or sect leaders, none of them were good people. Not only did they come by themselves, they also brought their families. Their own Taoist companions, relatives, favorite disciples, and the sect's right-hand men. They all brought them here, which made Royal Soldier Sect gnash their teeth in anger. All of this was because in Royal Soldier Sect, an unprecedented and unique fight was about to unfold. The two sides of the fight were not unusual. On one side was the King Pill level team, which was known as the once-in-a-century genius team, and on the other side was the peak deity stage team. A few days ago there was a showdown between the two sides. The King Pill geniuses that people had high hopes for were defeated one after another. Even Qianghua, without using her Kill Immortal sword, lost to the sect leader of Beastmaster School, the king of 10,000 beasts. As for Zhu Shiyao, who was also highly anticipated by people, unfortunately she drew lots against her master, Feng Yin. After the two sides confronted each other for a moment, Zhu Shiyao's eyes oozed blood, and she was defeated without even using her sword. At that time, it made people fully aware that geniuses were not omnipotent. Even if their talent was far higher than their predecessors, even if their opponents were limited to the same stage, the accumulated gap of hundreds of years was still difficult to make up for. Of course, from a good point of view, This unique cross-stage competition was very helpful for these geniuses to grow rapidly in the fight. After experiencing defeat, several King Pill geniuses said that they have gained a lot, and many of the bottlenecks in their cultivation have shown signs of loosening. The problem was, in just a few days they once again issued a challenge which was a bit unplanned. However, today the major sects of 9 regions came not to witness whether these King Pill geniuses really have the ability to turn the tables, but the founder of the recently popular idol group in 9 regions wanted to select the elites from the beauty contest group, and then personally form a sexy and seductive cheerleading team to cheer for the King Pill geniuses. It didn't matter what they cheered for, the key was how sexy and seductive this sexy and seductive cheerleading team was. This was really curious. Immortal cultivation was essentially an exploration of the unknown. A wise man once said that if people had no curiosity, they were no different from salted fish. Therefore, these cultivators who were full of enthusiasm for immortal cultivation gathered here, ready to carefully explore the secret of sexy and seductive. Chapter 6:11. The second King Pill vs. Deity stage match announced by the organizing committee of the grand competition was scheduled to start at noon. However, from the early morning, there was a sea of people inside and outside the valley. Most of these people had quite extraordinary origins. In their respective territories, they were big shots with powerful words. Now they came thousands of miles ahead of time just to seize a favorable terrain and explore the sexy secret of the cheerleading team. Then there was a long wait. 4 cultivators with long life, the concept of time had long been different from that of mortals. In the face of a slate, it was common for them to cultivate in seclusion for 3 to 5 years. However, today, after waiting for a long time, people were already a bit impatient. 2 cultivators from the eastern border province were having a quiet conversation behind the sect elder of their sect. Alas, it's almost noon, why hasn't anyone come yet? Do you mean this noon? Of course, otherwise, how could those Royal Soldier Sect commanders open the valley for us to come in? Breaking into Royal Soldier Sect at the appointed time is a dead end. Then why is there no one here? Could it be that they changed the time temporarily? Impossible, the elders of Xingjing sect are still sitting in the front row. If the time is changed, at least they would know, right? So, they're late? TSK, she's indeed a popular idol, her heirs are even bigger than the Wanxian League master. To let so many people wait, how dare she do that? Hee, don't forget who that popular idol is. Not only would she stand us up, she would do even more outrageous things. Now that you mention it, it seems that her previous reputation is not very good, but, as the young cultivator spoke, he furrowed his brows. A moment later, his brows smoothed out, and his expression became one of infatuation. But she's really beautiful. His companion nodded again and again. Previously, I didn't think that she's the #1 King Pill in 9 regions. When I saw her from afar, I only thought that her appearance was pretty good, but it's far from as shocking as it is now. Speaking of which, she's so beautiful, I wonder if she's married or not. Does she have a Taoist companion? Are you stupid? She's now a popular idol, how could idols get married? A woman with a man will lose a lot of charm. The problem is she may not have a man, but she may have a lot of women, that's true. Just as the 2 of them were indulging in their fantasies, more and more people began to grow impatient. Judging from the scorching sunlight, it should have been time for the battle to begin. However, the person who was supposed to appear had yet to appear. This made people very impatient. Outside the martial arts practice field, just when everyone's anxiety had gradually accumulated to a limit and was about to explode at any moment, boom. Around the valley, large amounts of flames and lava shot up into the sky like an orange-red fountain. What followed was a rolling heat wave and a soul-stirring female voice. The song lingering in the flames and lava seemed to have been roasted by the high temperature. It was full of passion. A moment later, accompanied by the singing, a group of young and beautiful girls emerged from the sea of fire. They danced passionately and enchantingly in midair and the flames turned into mist. They wore dazzling dance costumes that left large swathes of their skin exposed. Then, under the scorching heat and the enthusiastic dance, they were covered with sweat until they were crystal clear. The graceful dance made the audience outside the martial arts practice field thirsty. The background of the lava and flames was even more dazzling. In the end, the song that had been lingering in the field was mellow and fluttering, going straight into people's hearts and constantly rippling in their hearts. Is this the cheerleading team? A deity stage elder sitting in front of the martial arts practice field, watching the performance in front of him, was dumbfounded. As the only successor of the withered Ghost River, Taoist Ghost Ku had not been moved by anything for many years. But at this moment, he had to admit that when the volcanoes around him erupted at the same time and the girls danced in the flames, his already dry heart suddenly had a faint vitality. In particular, a girl with a beautiful curve in the air happened to pass in front of him and threw him a warm smile. That smiling face caused his mind to explode with a bang. Memories surged forth like a surging tide. At the same time, the girls showed their youth and beauty to their heart's content. After a carefully choreographed dance, each of them had the ability to charm all living beings. That sexy dance costume actually did not expose too much, and the key parts were tightly covered. But with their every move, it was as if there was an invisible hand teasing the thoughts and desires of the audience. Halfway through the dance, even some of the cultivators who were known for being old-fashioned and strict began to dance uncontrollably. This enthusiasm quickly spread among the crowd, and soon even some Yuanying and deity stage cultivators joined in. When the singing and dancing reached the climax, Taoist Ghost Ku, who was secretly called Dead Face by many people, actually laughed and sang loudly. Hundreds of female ghosts flew out of his body along with the singing and danced hand in hand with the cheerleaders in midair. Although one side was sunny while the other side was ghostly, the cooperation between the two was inexplicably seamless. This unexpected scene stunned the cultivators in the valley, and then they burst into laughter and thunderous applause. The enthusiasm pushed the climax to the peak. Finally, when the song ended, the surrounding volcanoes returned to silence. Taoist Ghost Ku was silent for a moment, and then he let out a long sigh and took back the female ghosts. His expression became like a dead man again, as if nothing had happened just now. The cheerleaders also finished their dance and stood in a row in the air. A woman in snow-white clothes seemed to step out of the void and stood in front of the girls, smiling like a flower. It was the legendary idol of 9 regions, Murong Bingli Night Charm Phoenix Yen Yuan Wu Air. The singing just now was from this idol who had risen to fame. Unfortunately, as the person in charge of the cheerleaders, she didn't change into sexy clothes like those girls. She still wore that simple and elegant white dress, which made many people secretly disappointed. However, after witnessing the performance just now, even the picky people felt that this trip was not in vain. An idol group was indeed an idol group. They perfectly showed their beauty to the people. However, it seemed that today's program was not over yet. Thank you for your applause and cheers just now, which made me feel that all the previous preparations were not in vain. However, today's protagonist is not us. We are just the opening warm-up. Next, let's invite the protagonist to come on stage and give us a more wonderful performance. With that, the legendary idol turned sideways and stretched out her jade-like arms. Along the direction of her arms, a group of cultivators flew out of the volcanic canyon. They were the King Pill cultivators who trained in a harsh environment. The leader was Wang Lu, and behind him were Qianghua Zhu Shiyao, as well as more than 10 peak King Pill cultivators from various sections. The official competition was a best of 5. The King Pill level group could send up to 5 people at most. However, taking into account the substitutes and other factors, there were currently 17 people who trained according to the standard of the main team. Today's match would also be these 17 people. Then it was the deity stage group. Unlike the King Pill level group who trained hard in the volcano, after entering the deity stage, it meant that they would be one of the top people in 9 regions. Whether they were willing or not, their every move would affect thousands of people, and they were destined to enjoy completely different treatment. It was a fantasy for these people to gather in one place to train hard. The difference in their path alone made it difficult for them to coexist. This time, it took the organizing committee a lot of effort to gather these Taoist masters of deity stage. I say, are you guys done or not? Among the Taoist masters of deity stage, an exceptionally tall man with a naked upper body and tattoos on his skin roared in a low voice. Previously, when you called me to participate in the grand competition, I said I'm not interested, but you asked me to come. Fine, for the sake of Beastmaster School owing you a favor, I will come. If you want me to fight against that King Pill trash, I will, but my patience is limited. If you want to play games, go play by yourself, don't drag me here to waste my time. The king of 10,000 beasts of Beastmaster School was not the strongest among the Taoist masters of deity stage, but he had 666 kinds of beast souls in his body, which was equivalent to 666 lives. One person was an army, which gave him an advantage in a one-on-one fight. Previously, when Qianghua fought him, she could not do anything to him without using her Kill Immortal sword. Qianghua thought that even if she used her Kill Immortal sword, it would still be difficult for her to kill 666 beast souls. Among the spirit beasts, there was no lack of species that were good at hiding their lives, and their survival ability was particularly strong. Thus, she took the initiative to admit defeat. For a long time, Xianghua was recognized as the #1 person in the younger generation. After she reached the peak of King Pill, coupled with the power of Kill Immortal Sword, many of the older generation were overshadowed. Except for the #1 King Pill in 9 regions, Xianghua basically represented the limit of Taoist Master King Pill. Since the King of 10,000 Beasts could overcome the limit of King Pill, in his view, this kind of playful fight was simply a waste of time. The King of 10,000 Beasts idea was not unique to him. Among the Taoist masters of deity stage, most of them were not interested in this kind of cross-stage challenge. In this regard, as the leader of King Pill and the planner of the whole event, Wang Lu smiled and said, "Then I'll be straightforward. This time I asked you to come here because we have the confidence to win." The King of 10,000 Beasts laughed wildly. "When? Just based on trash like you?" Wang Lu narrowed his eyes and said, "If you're afraid, you can say it directly. As the chief planner of the organizing committee, I'm broad-minded and will never laugh at you. I just want to ask you, are the 666 beast souls in your body old hens?" *CKU. The King of 10,000 Beasts let out a thunderous roar. This irascible and irascible Taoist master of deity stage attacked as soon as he said he would. However, just as this heart-wrenching roar came out, it was blocked by an invisible thick wall. Relying on the instinct of a beast, the King of 10,000 Beasts looked up at a person. It was a woman in a snow-white dress with a languid face. Not long ago, she stood in front of a group of young girls, and her legendary idle temperament made countless people blush. However, at this time, although she was still dressed in the same white dress, her facial features seemed to be very different. She was no longer a glamorous beautiful idol, but the #1 King Pill in 9 regions that frightened countless people. The King of 10,000 Beasts froze for a moment, and then his heart suddenly turned cold. "Is this your confidence to win? The #1 King Pill in 9 regions?" Wang Lu chuckled and inwardly said, "Of course not, she just helped me block a move. How could I be so shameless as to use Wang Wu first in the fight? The key to this victory is the cheerleaders." As a result, before Wang Lu could say anything, he saw the King of 10,000 Beasts struggled for a moment and then fiercely stamped his foot. "I admit defeat. Your beauty contest group is in Xinjiang, right? I'm going to report myself. Damn it, isn't it just cross-dressing? What's there to be afraid of? Watch me wear a bikini for you to see." With that, a pair of black fleshy wings grew out from his back, and then he soared into the sky with a whistling gust of wind, and then disappeared without a trace in the direction of Xinjiang. Wang Lu was dumbfounded. He thought, what the *CK, he won the fight before it even started? Isn't this too easy to win without doing anything? However, if you, this rough man, really wear a bikini, we are indeed a bit afraid. Chapter 6:12. Wang Lu, if your so-called certain victory is to let her fight, then there is no need to continue today's fight. We all admit that we are not your master's opponent in King Pill stage. After the defeat of the King of 10,000 Beasts, the other Taoist masters of deity stage were not interested in trying. Even Feng Yin, who was recognized as the #1 deity stage in 9 regions, once admitted that it was impossible for him to defeat Wang Wu in King Pill stage, so the others didn't need to humiliate themselves. Wang Lu helplessly explained, "She is not in today's King Pill stage list. Haven't any of you deity stage experts seen the list? She is a cheerleader, not a member of the fighting team." Upon hearing this, the other Taoist masters of deity stage hurriedly pulled out the notice of the fight that was sent a few days ago. Sure enough, they saw the list of King Pill stage members in the attachment, but there was no Wang Wu's name. "Since it's not Wang Wu, how can you have the certainty to win?" Wang Lu said, "This point, I have to invite you and the numerous fellow Taoists present here today to witness it. I can only say that the program I have prepared will not let you down." With that, Wang Lu turned sideways and faced the members of King Pill stage behind him. "Senior Wu Su, please make your move." From the crowd, a skinny old man came out. He was no more than 5 feet tall, dressed in a gray-yellow robe, and his slightly stooped back made him look even shorter. He was holding a lantern in his hand, but the candle in the lantern not only did not bring light, it instead dimmed the surrounding light. The old man's face was like a zombie. He slightly turned his head and stiffly said to Wang Lu, "You and I are both King Pill stage members, no need to be too polite and call me senior." With that, Taoist Master Wu Su slowly walked onto the training field. His footsteps were slow and stiff, and every step caused his body to stagger and sway. The lantern in his hand was even more erratic, perfectly playing out what it meant to have one foot in the grave. But after he walked onto the stage, he snorted and said, I'm still very young. Laughter could be heard from below the stage. This Taoist master Wu Su was also a little famous in the immortal cultivation world. When he was young, he cultivated the wind and thunder body forging method, which tempered his body to an exceptionally tyrannical level. He was obviously from the deceitful sect. The spirit summoning lantern contained thousands of curses and evil spells, yet he was braver and better at fighting than the sword cultivators who specialized in combat. Although it was the king pill, he had taken the lives of many nascent soul-perfected cultivators. Unfortunately, as he aged, the side effects of the wind and thunder body tempering art gradually appeared. His tall and sturdy body, which was over 10 feet tall at his peak, continued to shrink and he could no longer endure fierce battles. Even so, with the spirit summoning lantern in his hand and his hundreds of years of battle experience, it was enough for him to be ranked among the top king pill of his time. The only funny thing was that this old man refused to accept his old age and always thought of himself as a young man in his prime. According to the rumor, at the beginning of this grand competition, the little old man also went to sign up for the men's group of the beauty contest. After Wu Su appeared on the stage, several deity stage cultivators secretly communicated with each other through primordial spirit. Everyone was reluctant to fight against this old king pill. Wu Su was too old, even older than an old guy like Feng Yin. Even if his evil spell had reached the peak and he was definitely one of the top powerhouses among the Taoist masters of King Pill, even if he won, it would be an unfair victory. After a discussion, no one volunteered, so Feng Yin sighed. That being the case, then before he could finish, a young man dressed as a scholar smiled and said, "Then let me do it. If sect leader Feng Yin makes his move, what suspense is there in this competition? That would be a waste of the painstaking efforts of your sect's lead disciple." Feng Yin smiled wryly and did not answer. This person was the master of 10,000 Scrolls Building, a top-ranked sect in the Wanxian League, Three Rivers Scholar. His conduct was neither good nor evil. He was not close to any of the major sects, nor alienated. His character was also strange and unpredictable. Just now, the implication of his words was that if he made his move, Wang Lu could not let the sect leader of Spirit Sword Sect be defeated and run to the opposite sex. Even if there was a method that could make King Pill win against a deity stage cultivator, it would be a waste of time. However, Wang Lu's sense of belonging and loyalty to Lingjian school was unquestionable. However, it was also unquestionable that this guy would never be soft on his own people. Therefore, when Three Rivers Scholar bravely stepped forward, Feng Yin was really relieved. Because he could finally watch the development of the situation with peace of mind, to see how Wang Lu was going to bridge the huge gap between King Pill and deity stage. After Three Rivers Scholar came to the stage, his face was still filled with an excited smile. "Taoist Master Wu Su, I have long heard of your great name. In the past, your wind and thunder body forging method shook the eastern border, and your grace and spirit were all unforgettable. Today those old guys rely on their status and stage, so let us two young people have a good fight." The expression on Taoist Master Wu Su's face was originally tense, but when he heard Three Rivers Scholar mention the two young people, his face suddenly trembled. Three Rivers Scholar raised his eyebrows and said, "Although I still have a lot of things to say to you, I can't let so many people wait, so let's have a fight first." With that, he lifted a bamboo tube and sternly said, "Fellow Taoist Wu Su, please be careful. My name is Three Rivers Scholar and this is my first river." With that, he opened the lid of the bamboo tube and poured out a stream of black ink on the ground of the training field. This bamboo tube seemed small, but its capacity was quite amazing. Soon the ink flowed into a small river on the ground. Taoist Master Wu Su watched from a distance. Although his face didn't move, the lantern in his hand was stabilized and no longer swayed. The opponent was a Taoist master of deity stage. Even if he forcibly suppressed it to King Pill stage, it was still an insurmountable peak. This seemingly ordinary action must contain some kind of murderous intention. At the same time, the people outside the training field were also paying attention to the means of Three Rivers Scholar. This Taoist master of deity stage had always been known for his strangeness. As the master of 10,000 books building, there was almost no record of him making a move. Therefore very few people knew his cards. Fortunately, it seemed that they could finally get a glimpse of it. The ink in the bamboo tube was still flowing, far beyond its capacity. However, the technique of storing a mountain in a mustard seed had long been popularized. Since this bamboo tube was the spiritual treasure of Three Rivers Scholar, it was not unusual for it to have this function. It was just that, the ink had been flowing for a long time, yet there was no other function, which was really confusing. After pouring the ink for a while, Three Rivers Scholar also felt strange. Fellow Taoist Wusu, aren't you going to stop me? If this goes on, I will feel that I have an unfair advantage. I heard that in the past you were like the wind and thunder, so how could you be so cautious now? You've become lethargic. Other words were fine, but this lethargic sentence immediately angered Wusu. He immediately shook the lantern and thousands of ghosts flew out from it. The temperature in the training field plummeted, and the ground was covered with frost. Soon even the sky became gloomy and then dark. People talked about it one after another. Unexpectedly, Wusu's lantern actually contained such a powerful malicious spirit, which could cover the sky and make the sky change color. It was just that Wusu was stunned. Because although he had summoned the strongest ghost, he hadn't had the time to arrange the big black sky that could let the ghost display its strongest strength. This covering the sky and the sun was really not his doing. The next moment, Wusu's Jade Mansion's king pill violently trembled, and his instinct drove him to look up. A dark waterfall fell from the sky, like a celestial river spilling down to the earth, soaking everything. When the thousands of ghosts in the air were stained by the ink, they immediately screamed and melted, mixed with the ink and turned into a mass of black. Wusu himself reacted in time and propped up the same darkness with the lantern, hiding himself in the black rainstorm and barely supporting himself. Three Rivers scholar really deserved his reputation. This long river of ink under the King Pill's boundary already had such power. It was almost comparable to the might of Cheonghua Fairy's kill immortal sword. No wonder he said that the victory was unfair. If he had taken advantage of the start of the battle to attack with all his strength, not letting him open the bamboo tube, it could be assumed that this long river of ink would not suddenly have such a strong power. Was it really because of his old age that his character had become slow and cowardly? Could the invincible style of his youth never come back? Thinking of this, the lantern in Taoist Master Wusu's hand swayed again, and then he clearly felt that the surrounding space had become a bit narrower, teetering under the erosion of the long river of ink. King Pill's battle against a deity stage cultivator seemed to be too difficult. Perhaps if the most elite cultivators like Wang Lu and Cheonghua went all out, they would have some chance of winning, but after all, he was no longer young. However, at this time Taoist Master Wusu, who was in the dark, suddenly heard a song. It was an impassioned, blood-boiling song. That song was very mysterious. Although he was listening to it, an image could not help but appear in front of his eyes. This was the resonance of the five senses, stirring people's hearts with sound and projecting information on the other four senses. Before Wusu's eyes, the girls who danced in the lava and flame before the battle once again unfolded their dance. They danced around the martial arts practice field and sang loudly. In the midst of their singing, they were cheering for themselves. Wusu froze for a moment and then shook his head. At this time, what was the use of cheering for him? The gap in strength was so big that it was not something that could be reversed by individual will. However, after a while, Wusu's eyes gradually blurred, completely immersed in the figures of the girls. The singing continued to penetrate, like a clear spring, into his already dried-up jade mansion. A moment later, an inexplicable force began to rise. Wusu was surprised to find that the strength that he thought he could never recover had actually begun to slowly recover. Was it because of the singing of those girls? Was it because of their flawless dance? Or was it because of their sexy and enchanting body? Or, it was just their vague expectant eyes, which made him return to that high-spirited and youthful time. In a trance, he returned to the past, where his cherished partner was by his side. At that time they were young and full of passion, sticking together all the time, exchanging each other's feelings in the most intimate way. The sky, the earth, everywhere was their battlefield. When he was young, Taoist Master Wusu indulged in debauchery and left his own traces in many places. But now, as the song gradually reached its climax, he seemed to be young again. In his lower abdomen, a powerful flame was burning. The heat soon spread to every part of his body, moistening the withered, stretching the withered, and giving birth to endless power. Ah! Girls, thank you for your performance. Now just watch me. Chapter 613. On the martial arts practice field, a surging heroic voice pierced through the darkness. Then heavy footsteps shook the earth. Every time it shook, a shockwave would spread out from the martial arts practice field, sweeping through the darkness and tearing countless cracks in the ink-stained world. Tieske, you want to break my long river of ink with brute force? Wusu, you underestimate the power of knowledge and civilization too much. In the darkness, Three Rivers scholars sneered, and more ink fell from the sky, wrapping the training field tightly. Although Wusu's wind and thunder divine body could shake the world, it was bound more and more tightly by the soft and hard river of ink. This long river of ink was the lifelong effort of Three Rivers Scholar. Not only it had the soft and hard water aspect, but also the implication of the ink was the carrier of knowledge, symbolizing the immutable spirit of the cultivator civilization. It was the most continuous and endless. Wanting to break it with brute force was as difficult as ascending to the sky. However, the complexion of Three Rivers Scholar also slightly changed. Fortunately, when he went into battle, he was not careless and suppressed his own strength to the level that was infinitely close to Yuanying's stage. With this, he could barely exert 30% of the power of the long river of ink. Otherwise, it would have been broken by Wuxia just now. Even if the long river of ink was good at using softness to overcome hardness, it still had its limit. And Wuxia's wind and thunder divine body was infinitely close to the limit of Three Rivers Scholar, so his strength was simply unimaginable. If he displayed such power from the beginning, then the long river of ink would not have the chance to be launched at all. Three Rivers Scholar could not help but rejoice that he finally took the initiative. Otherwise, perhaps this fight would really be overturned. Fortunately, the outcome had been decided. Roar! Taoist Master Wuxia once again let out a roar. His voice rolled, but it was quickly dissipated in the darkness. Don't waste your strength, fellow Taoist Wuxia. Open your mouth so big, be careful not to swallow the ink. As soon as his voice fell, Wuxia's roar came to an abrupt end. Three Rivers Scholar was so surprised that he thought, so obedient? However, the next moment, Three Rivers Scholar was surprised to find that Taoist Master Wuxia actually opened his mouth wide, took a deep breath, and sucked in the ink around him. You're crazy. Damn it. Three Rivers Scholar instantly guessed the intention of the other party. He wanted to use this move to break the long river of ink. This whimsical move really poked the weak point of Three Rivers Scholar. This long river of ink was the means of a Taoist master of deity stage, and it was refined using the King Pill realm, so it naturally had a serious flaw: the amount of ink was insufficient. This torrential river-like scene was actually a reincarnation array constructed by Three Rivers Scholar with the help of the endless circulation of water, so that the ink could be continuously recycled. In reality, he didn't use much ink this time. It was only a few million kilograms. For mortals, this was an unimaginable amount. However, for cultivators at the King Pill realm, finding a way to contain millions of kilograms of ink was a piece of cake. This was especially true for cultivators who specialized in body tempering. Their bodies contained countless mysterious techniques, and the technique of storing a large amount of resources in their abdomen in case of emergency was no longer new. And Taoist Master Wuxia was a body refining master. He took a deep breath like a whale sucking in water, directly sucking up nearly half of Three Rivers Scholar's ink. For a time, even with the reincarnation array, the long river of ink suddenly stagnated. The darkness that wrapped the martial arts arena was full of loopholes. Thus, the people outside the arena finally saw the situation inside the arena. As several zhangs tall and sturdy giants stood on the ground, crazily sucking the ink around him with his mouth wide open. Tens of thousands of kilograms of ink were swallowed into his abdomen, but his muscular abdomen only bulged slightly, seeming to be able to do it with ease. Although he was only in the King Pill realm, the boldness of this sturdy man, as well as the huge amount of ink that he swallowed, were so soul-stirring that many Yuanying and deity stage cultivators outside the arena were moved. What a good wind and thunder divine body. No wonder he was known as the invincible King Pill for a period of time when he was young. If not for an accident that caused him to never reach Yuanying stage in his life, he would be one of the strongest people in the Wanxian League today. However, before he went on stage, Taoist Master Wuxia was just an old man with one foot in the grave. How could he be rejuvenated at this time and return to his peak? Is it because of the songs sung by those little girls? That's the only possibility. It's really strange, although that song is pleasant to the ear, it doesn't make people feel like they're coming back to life, right? Not necessarily. You can't feel the mystery because the song is not directed outside the arena. What we can hear is only the aftermath. Although the duel between Taoist Master Wuxia and Three Rivers Scholar was not over yet, it had already attracted a lot of discussion from the audience. No matter from which aspect, Taoist Master Wuxia, who was old and weak and had lost his spirit, should have no chance of winning against Three Rivers Scholar, who was famous for his hundreds of means. The first half of the fight also confirmed people's speculation. Only Taoist Master Wuxia, who refused to admit his old age and whose body had long been old, could no longer throw out his thunderous fist. Under the wrapping of Three Rivers Scholar's long river of ink, his defeat was already certain. However, at this time, the singing from outside the arena magically awakened the long-lost vitality of Taoist Master Wuxia, which even restored him to his peak state in a short period of time and forcibly broke the long river of ink with his wind and thunder divine body. Was this Wang Lu's way to win? Using the power from outside the arena to boost the power from inside the arena was indeed a wonderful move. According to the rules of the fight, people outside the arena were not allowed to interfere in the fight, but cheering was obviously not prohibited. It was just that no one had thought that the effect of cheering would be so good. And for the people in the arena, the effect of this earth-shattering turn was even stronger. Three Rivers Scholar helplessly sighed and said, "Miscalculation, miscalculation, I didn't think there would be such a trick. If I had known this earlier, I should have at least added some seasoning to the ink." At this time, Taoist Master Wuxia had completely drunk the long river of ink from Three Rivers Scholar. His abdomen was swollen and his face was flushed, but he still seemed to be able to handle the situation with ease. "Then, are you going to admit defeat, damned soda?" With the return of youth, Taoist Master Wuxia's temperament had also become very different. Three Rivers Scholar's complexion sank. "Don't be happy too early. I just miscalculated in this fight, but it's far from being defeated. You have the ability to swallow a whale, but can you swallow my long river of epic?" With that, Three Rivers Scholar flicked his wrist, and countless scrolls poured out of his sleeves and flew rapidly in the air. The pages of the books were constantly turning, from which thousands of scenes were projected. People saw that on the vast earth, the demons were wreaking havoc, the people were plunged into misery and suffering, and a group of blood-soaked cultivators, backed by the setting sun, resolutely launched an attack against the army of demons. People saw that a white-haired cultivator with a ruddy complexion was working hard next to the alchemy furnace, refining the man-made spirit root into a pill. People saw an epic. The tens of thousands of years of history of cultivators were condensed in these thousands of books, which became the source of power for Three Rivers Scholar. Although limited by the King Pill realm, the long river of epic of Three Rivers Scholar was far from comparable to the real epic of Immortal Path. It was by no means something that could be defeated by brute force. Wuxia solemnly held the lantern in front of him. Apart from brute force, the spiritual treasure inherited from his sect was his only hope. However, in the face of the life source spiritual treasure of a Taoist master of deity stage, he really didn't have the slightest confidence. "To be able to break my long river, Taoist Master Wuxia, your record is enough to be proud of. Fellow Taoist Wang Lu, your cheerleader plan has indeed worked. Unfortunately, I don't want to lose this fight." With that, Three Rivers Scholar suddenly took out a book from the sea of books above his head and read it aloud. Immediately, the heroic figure of the active hero in the epic appeared on the training field. Even though it was just a projection of a spell, the hero who once ruled the world still brought a soul-stirring and powerful aura. Taoist Master Wuxia's complexion remained unchanged, but his left leg could not help but bend, and he knelt on the ground on one knee. At the same time, Wang Lu snapped his fingers at his master. "Show your trump card." Three Rivers Scholar was a bit more powerful than expected. Even if Taoist Master Wuxia exerted his power to the extreme, it was still not enough. Thus, it was difficult to rely on the positive encouragement of the cheerleaders alone. Therefore, it was time for the negative encouragement to appear. "Haha, I've been waiting for you to say that for a long time." Wang Wu smiled and also snapped her fingers. "Sister Miao Yen, please let our rookie appear. Alas, don't regret it." In mid-air, the helpless voice of Taoist Master Miao Yen sounded. Then a 4 symbols 8 trigrams transmission array lit up in mid-air, and a burly figure slowly took shape in the array. From the outline of the figure, someone quickly recognized the identity of the person. "Hey, isn't that the king of 10,000 beasts who just admitted defeat? How come he came back? This is the transmission array from Shengjing's sect. Has he already reported to the beauty contest group? Aha, I wonder what kind of tribulation he has experienced. Yes, it's really curious." Under the training field, the noisy discussion came to an abrupt end. Because the transmission array had been completed, the figure of the king of 10,000 beasts was completely revealed. He was already so burly and sturdy, and his muscles seemed like they were about to burst. It was just that his clothes were very different from when he left. Pink animal skin skirt, furry fluffy cotton boots, 2 cat claws shaped, exaggeratedly large gloves, and a pair of cat ear ornaments on the top of his head. All of these were worn in a very incongruous way on the body of the king of 10,000 beasts, which formed a stark contrast with the temperament of the king of 10,000 beasts. Outside the martial arts practice field, there was absolute silence. Everyone stared dumbfoundedly at this horrifying scene, and no one could say a single word. Even the two people who were about to finish their fight on the field could not help but have their attention taken away. Three Rivers Scholar almost lost his breath and interrupted the reading of the epic. Fortunately, he still controlled himself. Otherwise, this was blasphemy against the epic. Once the magical power backfired, the first thing that the projected epic hero would do was to turn around and punish him for the crime of blasphemy. However, the next moment, a more intense blow came. The muscles of the King of 10,000 Beasts trembled, and his heart seemed to be in a struggle. But with a sneer from Wang Wu, he finally made up his mind. Three Rivers Scholar, you can do it. The thunderous cheers made the situation on the field almost stagnate. Everyone stared at the King of 10,000 Beasts dumbfoundedly. The strong man dressed in pink was trying his best to raise his voice and shout with the sharpest voice he could muster. Three Rivers Scholar. Three Rivers Scholar trembled. Although his mouth was still reciting the epic, his heart was already desperately screaming, "Shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up. Three Rivers, I will always cheer for you. Can't hear, can't see, can't think, can't hear, can't see, can't think. Three Rivers, I will always love you. I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you." In the end, the King of 10,000 Beasts drew a crooked heart shape in front of his chest with his hands wearing the cat claw gloves. Three Rivers, I am your cute beast ear girl. Fuck you, get the hell out of here. Three Rivers Scholar's eyes were red, and he directly tore the epic scroll in his hand in half. Chapter 6:14. The battle between King Pill and a deity stage cultivator left everyone in and out of the martial arts arena silent. The battle started in an unexpected way and ended in an unexpected way. It was just that when the battle was over, no one was willing to care about the result. People were more concerned about, "Fellow Taoists of Thundercliff, can I borrow your brainwashing prop electrode headgear? Lost Heart Fruit, who has lost heart fruit? Fellow Taoists of 100 Grass Sect, please do me a favor. What about Mengpa soup? Fellow Taoists of Hell Sect, do you have any extra Mengpa soup? This old man is willing to buy it for 100,000 spirit stones. I want some stomach medicine first, I really can't vomit anymore. Phew, fortunately, I was born with a keen spiritual sense, so I stabbed my eyes and ears in advance and luckily escaped." A moment later, the wailing outside the arena began to rise and fall. After experiencing the disaster, people began to help each other and save themselves, slowly recovering their vitality. Being able to injure hundreds and thousands of cultivators at once, this battle was destined to be recorded in the annals of history. Of course, a certain cute beast ear girl was also destined to become a legend. When the beast ear girl left the arena laughing like a dead person, many people sighed in their hearts, thinking that the Beast Master School would probably be demoted from now on. They didn't know how the other disciples would react when they saw their leader's beast ear outfit being published in the major newspapers. In any case, if they were to encounter this kind of thing, the only choice would probably be to withdraw from the sect and draw a line with it forever. Thinking of the enmity between the Beast Master School and Wang Lu in the early years of the Grand Cloud Mountain, people had to suspect that this was probably the classic example of Wang Lu's revenge. However, compared with the people on the stage, the scene under the stage was not surprising at all. Cough coughed. Three Rivers Scholar's face was as pale as paper, and black blood flowed from his 7 orifices. His 5 senses were suffering severe torture at the same time. Strong light, noise, stench, bitterness and pain, any one of these was enough to make an ordinary person's spirit collapse in an instant. But Three Rivers Scholar had to bear these 5 kinds of torture at the same time until he atoned for his sins. The sin of desecrating the epic. Three Rivers Scholar was a powerhouse at the peak of deity stage. Supreme Tianluan once predicted that he was only one step away from the realm of Supreme. Within the next 100 years, there would be a seat for him in the Wanxian League. However, after experiencing this blow, Three Rivers Scholar's road to promotion suddenly became bumpy. However, he could not blame others for this. The battle with Taoist Master Wu Su ended in defeat because he tore the epic volume in anger, bringing about his own destruction. On the other side, Taoist Master Wu Su was also not feeling well. Although the cheering of the King of 10,000 Beasts was dedicated to Sanhe, the aftermath made him feel that there was a flash of lightning and thunder in front of him, and his line of sight became blurry. Whenever he thought of that pink figure, he would feel his stomach churning. It was not because he drank too much ink or because of something else. In short, this was a victory that was more disgusting than defeat. But victory is victory after all, so let us cheer for the victors. Wang Lu said loudly, ignoring the gazes of countless pairs of eyes inside and outside the field, went straight to the training field, and then tried to raise Taoist Master Wu Su's arm high. The latter did not resist, but before Wang Lu could grab his hand, Taoist Master Wu Su could not help but cover his mouth with his hand, bend down and then vomited. Oh 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 oh, dark ink gushed out of his mouth, and at the same time, there was a pungent smell. Wang Lu frowned and sealed his sense of smell with his magical power. However, at the same time, many people outside the field were stimulated and finally broke through the critical point and began to vomit. Vomiting spread rapidly outside the field like an infectious disease, and soon became a catastrophe that affected hundreds of people. Most of these cultivators had carefully polished their bodies, which were amazingly strong. Ordinary diseases and toxins were meaningless to them, and many physiological reactions were also under their control. However, at this time they couldn't control themselves and kept vomiting. Therefore, even Wang Lu, who personally directed all of this, could not bear to look straight at them. The actual effect of positive and negative incentives was better than expected, but too good was also a bit troublesome. Thinking about it, he who planned all of this would certainly not leave a good reputation. Nicknames like vomiting maniac and so on were inevitable. In short, this is how we will fight next. When the low-level group challenges the high-level group, there will be cheerleaders to cheer for them. I wish you all a prosperous martial arts. With that, Wang Lu intended to leave the field directly, but looking at the increasing resentment in the field, he felt that he still needed to do something. Then he glanced at his master, who was watching the show from the side, and suddenly had an idea. Then, as compensation, the beauties of the beauty contest will give you a wonderful performance to wash your eyes. Thereupon Wang Wu was taken aback. What performance? How come I don't know about it? Wang Lu directly threw a mysterious sky crystal at her. What about now? Do you understand? Wang Wu sneered and said, Who do you think I am? I am now a famous legendary idol in 9 regions. You want to bribe me with a mere mysterious sky crystal? As she said that, she put the mysterious sky crystal, which was worth millions of spirit stones, into her mustard seed bag and then said righteously, Now you have deviated from the right path. When you encounter problems, you always think of using money to pave the way. In the long run, it will lead to disaster. I must seriously correct your 3 views. Humph, ugly things should be washed with beauty. I will let you see the beautiful team that I have personally cultivated. With that, Wang Wu clapped her hands. Girls, get ready to perform on the stage. Wang Lu sighed. Your face always amazes me. Wang Wu laughed and said, Haha, as an idol, this face is the thing that makes a living. While talking, Wang Wu reassembled the cheerleaders, put on another gorgeous performance suit, and busied herself on the training field, which finally calmed the resentment of the crowd. After that, the battle between the Golden Core stage and the Divine Transformation stage continued for another 3 rounds. With both positive and negative incentives working together, the next few rounds ended with the Golden Core stage Taoists winning all the battles. Qianghua Zhu Shiyao and Wang Lu defeated their opponents respectively, sending them into the abyss of cross-dressing beauty pageant. However, in the competition, Wang Lu also found some problems. Different people had different sensitivities to positive and negative incentives. For example, Taoist Master Wu Su was very sensitive to the youthful and lively beauty. The cheering of those young and beautiful girls could arouse his vitality. However, Zhu Shiyao, on the other hand, was very insensitive to this. Even if the cheerleaders shouted themselves hoarse, they could not arouse her even half of enthusiasm, because in fact, Zhu Shiyao was more youthful and beautiful than all the cheerleaders. At the same time, negative incentives did not work for everyone. For example, for the king of 10,000 beasts, this kind of earth-shattering blow from the cute beast-eared girl was not very effective. Afterward, when people showed him the recorded video, the burly giant just scratched his chest hair, and then grinned and said, I didn't expect this father to be so cute. Ah, it's quite fun. At that time people sighed, fun your mother. In short, after these events, Wang Lu realized that although positive and negative incentives were effective, they also needed to be adapted to the local conditions. Beauty and ugliness could not be generalized, they needed to accurately find the audience's pleasure point. Fortunately, there was still time before the start of the competition, so he could organize people to slowly collect the personal pleasure point. Moreover, after further consideration, a person's pleasure point and weakness were often dialectically unified. For example, Taoist Master Wu Su liked to be young and energetic, so relatively speaking, old and decrepit things were like poison to him. 3 Rivers Scholar boasted himself as an intellectual, so he was particularly fond of the white snow in spring. Therefore things like cute cat-eared girl and the like were particularly lethal to him. Collecting the pleasure point in a sense was also collecting the weakness. In normal times, most cultivators would resist this kind of information investigation. However, now that there was the righteousness of the grand competition, Wang Lu was not afraid that others would not obey. In the fight between King Pill and Deity Stage, Wang Lu got a lot of valuable information. For example, big sister Zhu Shiyao seemed to have a flawless state of mind, but her excessive dedication to the way of the sword was precisely one of her weaknesses. At that time, in order to stimulate her to defeat a Taoist master of Deity Stage, Wang Lu found a row of immortal sword spirits and tempted Zhu Shiyao in every possible way. Most of these sword spirits came from the hands of the sect leaders and senior elders of the major sections. In addition to their magical abilities as immortal treasure spirits, most of them carried the aura of the wielder. Just by standing outside the arena, they already gave birth to an amazing sword intent. When she saw this row of immortal sword spirits, Zhu Shiyao's eyes shone. Her great sun golden brilliant sword sent out a sword wave that could sweep away thousands of troops and defeated a Taoist master of Deity Stage with brute force. In addition, Qianghua also had a unique incentive model. The lead disciple of Shengjing sect, who was known for her flawlessness, was calm and unruffled in front of anyone. For example, in the first fight between King Pill and Deity Stage, she easily lost to the adorable beast-ear girl, the king of 10,000 beasts. At that time, many people questioned that she didn't seem to go all out, but Qianghua herself turned a deaf ear to these doubts. She always had her own considerations in doing things, repeatedly weighing the pros and cons of victory and defeat. She attached great importance to the voice of public opinion, but she never blindly followed it. However, this time, when Wang Lu managed to pull many elders of Shengjing sect and even he too to the sidelines, Qianghua showed an unprecedented tension. The strength of her attack suddenly increased a bit, and her swordsmanship also changed accordingly. Completely regardless of the calm posture, she rushed toward the opponent with an unprecedented tough posture, desperately fighting with all her might. Finally, she turned the tables from the disadvantage step by step and won the victory. Qianghua's point of coolness or sensitivity came from the expectation of the sect elders. As for Wang Lu himself, it was very simple. As long as Aya stood under the stage, Wang Lu would risk his life to snatch the victory. With these gains, Wang Lu determined that there was no direction problem in his plan, so he organized more people to participate in the construction of an unprecedented cheerleading team. In fact, this was also inevitable. The grand competition involved the interests of hundreds of millions of people in 9 regions. However, in the end, only 2,000 people would participate in the competition. The others had the power but could not use it, which was equivalent to a waste of resources. Forming a cheerleading team could effectively avoid this waste. However, in the final analysis, these are just external moves. At this time, it's okay to use it to stimulate everyone's enthusiasm for winning. However, in the competition a month later, we can't rely on these insignificant skills to win. According to the fight between Wang Wu and Bai Zhe, the gap between 9 regions and Dixian is still. Thinking of the competition a month later, Wang Lu's head began to ache again. Chapter 6:15. Little Hai, please tell me a joke. Okay, once upon a time there was a mountain, there was a temple, and in the temple there was a monk telling a story. Wait a minute, what kind of joke is this? What's so funny about it? A joke without a funny point, isn't that funny? Of course, if you're still not satisfied, I can polish this joke a bit more. A talented cultivator from the Wanxian League's 10,000 Arts sect, who is about to face the calamity of the King Pill in less than 30 years of cultivation, a man who already has a married partner and a family, now neglects to eat and sleep, even abandoning his family to deal with official business for you, yet you ask him to tell a joke without a funny point. Don't you think that's funny? Little Hai, your resentment is almost materialized. Wang Lu sighed and pushed away the documents on the table. It seems that being busy for a long time will cause more mental pressure than expected. I think we should stop working today and go to the entertainment venue under the banner of Mysterious Sky Mansion. Hai Yunfan sorted out the documents in his hand and said without changing his countenance, I'm a man with a family. Wang Lu said, that's why it's more exciting. Isn't it better to have a wife than a concubine? Seeing that Hai Yunfan was still unmoved, Wang Lu changed his way of persuading him. You have to think about it this way. What you and I are doing now is related to the hundreds of millions of people in 9 regions. If we can't maintain a positive attitude, any flaws in our work would be a crime against hundreds of millions of people. Therefore, at this moment, the most important thing is to make yourself happy. As for your personal family problem, it should give way to the overall situation of 9 regions. Hearing this, Hai Yunfan was also amazed. Unexpectedly, after being a bureaucrat here for more than a month, even destroying other people's marriage and family can rise to the level of the overall situation of 9 regions. If you want to take a vacation, then go by yourself. I still have some official documents to draft here, so I can't accompany you. You don't have to worry about my condition. Feifei just came to see me 2 days ago. I'm in good condition. Tiske, this is the ugly face of a married man. But since you said so, then I will leave everything to you. These documents are to be reviewed later, so you can do as you see fit. As Wang Lu spoke, he placed the 3 feet tall document in front of Hai Yunfan's table, and then disappeared without a trace. Hai Yunfan looked at the mountain of documents in front of him, and the brush in his hand fell to the ground involuntarily. Holy shit. After escaping from the office, Wang Lu took a deep breath. The scorching aura of the lava in the back mountain of Royal Soldier Sect immediately poured into his body, but it was soon cooled down by a burst of cool magical power. Wang Lu had to operate his non-phase immortal heart in order to relax himself. At this time there was less than half a month before the opening of the grand competition, and the closer it was, the greater the pressure. In the past month or so, Wang Lu had used various means to stimulate the team, and the effect was really remarkable. However, there was still a big gap between the real odds of winning. In particular, the situation in the fighting group was particularly prominent. As the chief planner of the event, the pressure on him was particularly prominent. Even Supreme He too, the person in charge of the entire organizing committee, did not have as much pressure as him. Supreme He too was only in charge of the overall situation, and the event was completely handed over to Wang Lu. At most, he was responsible for the specific implementation, so the pressure was not that heavy. Wang Lu shouldered the heavy responsibility of digging the possibility from the impossible. If this goes on, I'm afraid that in the end, all of us will have to use the heaven burning blood technique to have a chance to win. However, the effect of the heaven burning blood technique on the king pill level and above is very weak. Moreover, if it really comes to the point of fighting, there would only be more means on the Dixian side. This is also an evil path. Although from the beginning I didn't have much hope on the fighting side, the cultural level of Dixian is unknown, so it's not reasonable to blindly bet on the fighting side. Secondly, no matter how low the proportion of fighting side is, it's impossible to be less than half. Wang Lu thought about what other resources he could use, and which group of fighting side could be further improved. At the same time, he took a walk in the back mountain of Royal Soldier Sect. About going down the mountain to indulge in sensual pleasures, it was just to flirt with little Hai. Now, how could he have the leisure to play with women? Moreover, some time ago when he was inspecting the formation of the cheerleading team in the beauty contest group, he really saw all kinds of handsome men and beautiful women in 9 regions. In addition, he also watched several large-scale theatrical performances and experienced a round of beauty edification. Now, ordinary women were like clay chickens and pottery dogs in his eyes, completely uninterested. Hey, isn't this senior brother Wang Lu? An unexpected greeting interrupted Wang Lu's thoughts. Turning his head, Wang Lu's eyebrows immediately twisted. It took him quite a bit of effort to restrain himself from slaying the demon. Haha, don't be so repulsive when you see me. Although I'm indeed a bit weak in the King Pill group, I have just successfully broken through a checkpoint, and my strength has greatly improved. I will definitely make you look at me in a new light. A black-clothed Zen cultivator appeared in front of Wang Lu and enthusiastically showed him his newly repaired black Kasaya. Compared with the original Kasaya, the new Kasaya was obviously strengthened. Speaking of which, thanks to you breaking my black Kasaya last time, I realized that the life-saving unique skill that I have been relying on is not safe. Therefore, I became courageous after knowing shame and further perfected the black Kasaya and my cultivation method. Now, even if I have to face the deity stage group, I have some confidence. This can be considered as no construction without destruction, hahaha. Luo Xiao laughed heartily. Of course, he didn't get any response. Well, I think you're a little unhappy? Are you worried about the grand competition? Alas, it's really amazing. A King Pill cultivator is already busy working hard for thousands of people in the entire 9 regions. Wang Lu said, since you also know that I'm busy working hard, why don't you do me a favor? Luo Xiao's spirit was shaken. Please say it. As long as I can help, I will do my best. Please disembowel yourself here for me to see. What? Wang Lu said, recently, I've been suffering from depression if I don't watch people commit suicide. Since you are willing to help me solve my problems, why don't you commit suicide for me to see? Let me feel happy and make more contributions to 9 regions. Luo Xiao froze for a moment and then laughed. You really have a well-deserved reputation for being humorous. Unfortunately, Flower Stern School strictly forbids its disciples from seeking death. I really can't help you with this problem. Wang Lu thought for a moment and said, You can't do it yourself, but I can help you. With that, he brought out his rouge tears. You don't have to be so aggressive. Luo Xiao quickly took a few steps back and then said, Although I know that I'm weak, ugly and never liked, but if I work hard I can still be of some use. Now is the time when our 9 regions needs people, so please be merciful. While the two of them were talking, a group of onlookers had gathered around them. Wang Lu thought about it. This Luo Xiao's attitude was extremely low, and he was also the main force of the King Pill group that participated in many projects. For a while he really couldn't find an excuse to kill this person in broad daylight. However, Wang Lu was unwilling to let this matter slide. He really disliked this Luo Xiao to the extreme, wishing that he could kill him as soon as possible. There was no reason for this intuition and there was no precedent for it either. Before, Wang Lu had never gnashed his teeth in hatred toward someone for no reason. And because he was so special, Wang Lu didn't intend to let him go. For his intuition, Wang Lu also trusted it to the extreme. How about this, Luo Xiao? I do have a difficult task for you to complete. Rest assured it's not to kill you. Luo Xiao was in high spirits. Good. I will try my best to complete it. Wang Lu pointed to his feet and said, Last month, I buried a red lotus of hellfire in the depths of this lava sea. With the pure and rich fire element spiritual energy here, it should have bloomed and borne fruit by now. I'll have to trouble you to go deep into the lava sea and pick the fruit. Luo Xiao was stunned for a moment. Do you mean the lava sea that is used by the royal soldier sect as the primary furnace fire for the arsenal? Yes. The lava sea that doubles the firepower with every layer deeper, and is enough to turn all the Taoist master of King Pill into ashes? Yes, you're quite clear about it. That red lotus of hellfire is planted by me at a depth of 3,000 feet. You can't delay any longer, just go and come back quickly. That's a one-way trip. 3,000 feet deep, how could I come back alive? Surpass yourself and break through the limit. Didn't you find a way to perfect the Black Kasaya last time under my violent sword chi? Maybe this time, after the baptism of the lava, the Black Kasaya can be promoted to the immortal rank. How could that be possible? Tiske, if people don't have dreams, what's the difference between them and salty water? Wang Lu shook his head. If the red lotus of hellfire doesn't work, I remember that before in the eastern border region, there is a geomancy array to raise spirit stones. Among them there should be a 7-colored glazed stone, which is very useful for my next plan. You can go and get it for me. Looking for the 7-colored glazed stone on the Earth-top mountain? There should be no problem, but the Earth-top mountain is the largest mountain in the eastern border region. The top of the mountain has a radius of tens of thousands of miles. May I ask where the 7-colored glazed stone is? Wang Lu said, I don't know the specifics, you can look for it slowly. Luo Xiao was dumbfounded. If it's really important, it doesn't matter if I look for it slowly on the Earth-top mountain, but in half a month, the grand competition will officially start. Wang Lu patted Luo Xiao's shoulder. This task is far more important than the victory or defeat of 1 or 2 projects. If you can find that stone, our entire grand competition will have hope. Therefore, even if it's 10 years or 100 years, you have to find the stone for me on the mountain. I want you to make a great heart demon oath that you will not go down the mountain until you find the stone. Do you dare to swear? Luo Xiao was speechless by Wang Lu. He froze like a stone statue. However, at this time an unexpected person rushed over. Wang Lu, if you want to find the 7-colored glazed stone, I have 3,000 outer court disciples at your disposal. However, Luo Xiao is the absolute main force in many projects of the King Pill Group. It's not appropriate to waste his power on looking for it. Wang Lu looked at the person and slowly tilted his head. Shizhou. Chapter 616. Shizhou, the head of the 4-element sect, had been cultivating for 1,500 years and had a pivotal position in the Wanxian League. The supreme leader of a high-rank sect in the Wanxian League and a standing member of the organizing committee actually came forward to support a bald-headed disciple of the Flower Stern sect, which was somewhat beyond Wang Lu's expectations. When did the Flower Stern sect hook up with the 4-element sect? The 4-element sect was famous for being noble and elegant, and it was very particular about origin and bloodline. True disciples and inner disciples must be of noble bloodline and disciples of cultivation families with glorious history. In addition, those who cultivated immortal methods could not have artificial spiritual roots, so the number of disciples was naturally worrying. Therefore, the four-element sect also reformed and recruited a large number of outer disciples. In the eyes of the sect, these people were basically equivalent to cannon fodder, but even cannon fodder had the style of cannon fodder. To enter the sect, one had to be a descendant of a mortal emperor or a noble. With the foundation of the Flower-Stern sect, even the head of the sect was barely qualified to be an inner disciple. Luo Xiao is naturally intelligent and has an extraordinary aptitude. I have decided to accept him as a true disciple. Wang Lu was even more surprised when he heard this. In the Wanxian League, this kind of recruitment of disciples from other sects was not uncommon. This Luo Xiao was not an ordinary person, so it was natural that the Flower-Stern sect could not keep an eye on him. But at this time, a supreme of a high-rank sect happened to accept him as a true disciple. It was barely reasonable to say that it was just a coincidence, but Wang Lu would not accept this explanation. It was better to say that this little bald-headed disciple of the Flower-Stern sect was handsome and made Shizhou glow with youth, which was more convincing. However, even if he did not accept it, Wang Lu would not openly question a supreme-level master. If he said too much, it would be too embarrassing if the other party's impure physical relationship was exposed. In short, since Luo Xiao had found a godfather, he would stop here for today. Since Luo Xiao is so important to Supreme, I will not take away his love. I will leave the matter of the seven-colored glazed stone to your outer disciple. I still have something to do, so I will leave first. After saying that, Wang Lu bade farewell and left, no longer bothering with the pair of master and disciple. After returning to the office, Wang Lu immediately ordered Hai Yunfan, "Xiaohai, help me get all the recent information on Luo Xiao." Luo Xiao. Hai Yunfan looked up from the pile of documents. "Why are you interested in him again? I thought you were tired of playing with him." Wang Lu sneered and said, "Of course, it's because the Baldy has developed a new way of playing. In just over half a month, he actually found the head of the Four-Element sect to be his godfather. Now he is the successor of the head of the Four-Element sect. Do you think it's necessary to play with him?" Hai Yunfan was also surprised. Shizhou? It was rumored that his cultivation was extremely high, but his eyes were at the top of his head, and he did not put anyone in his eyes. Many people in the Wanxian League wanted to talk to him, but it was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. This Luo Xiao was actually accepted by him as his successor? Wait a moment, I have someone's record here. As he spoke, Hai Yunfan pointed his finger, and a door suddenly opened in the office. Behind the door were countless rows of tall bookshelves that stretched as far as the eye could see, and every bookshelf was filled with information files. Hai Yunfan stood outside the door and loudly instructed, "Keyword Luo Xiao. Extract everything." The next moment, tens of thousands of books flew out from the bookshelves, and the sound of pages turning converged like a wave. These books passed through the shuttle door and quickly piled up in the office. Every time they piled up into a mountain of books, Hai Yunfan would point at the top and gather the books into a jade slip to reduce the volume. Before long, there were more than 30 jade slips in the office, and the information about Luo Xiao was finally extracted. Hai Yunfan smiled and said, "How do you feel? This is the file collection management system that our 10,000 Arts sect has specially developed for this grand competition. Feels expensive. It costs tens of millions of spirit stones to purchase such a set, yet you guys still have the nerve to ask for the price. Hey, at that time we only asked for the cost price of 13 million spirit stones, and the rest is the kickback of you, the members of the organizing committee." Wang Lu righteously said, "The principle of the organizing committee is to be pragmatic, honest and efficient. My biggest advantage is that I am honest. I don't know what you're talking about kickbacks." With that, Wang Lu picked up a jade slip and immersed his primordial spirit in it. Suddenly, a large amount of information poured in, all of which were records related to Luo Xiao, including all the activities that he participated in during the training, all the activities and all the details. The information seemed to be scattered and messy, but it was organized according to clear logic, so it was effortless for him to read it. In addition, his primordial spirit was unusually tough at the peak of the Gold Core realm, so he quickly finished reading the information. After that, one after another, Wang Lu read more than 30 jade slips in one go, closed his eyes, and began to further sort out the clues. So that's how it is. This guy really hides himself deeply. After a long time, Wang Lu opened his eyes and took a long breath. At this time, Hai Yunfan had just read 4 or 5 jade slips, so he had no time to sort them out. However, the gap between peak Shudan stage and peak King Pill stage was huge. After so many years of friendship, he already knew that Wang Lu was a bookworm, so he didn't think much of it. He directly put down the jade slip and asked for the conclusion. What do you mean? Simply put, he carefully arranged it and catered to his liking. 10 days ago, Shijojin and Black and White Ancestor played chess on the Silent Island. Shijojin lost by one move and fell behind step by step, but he just passed by the game and then secretly made a wonderful move for Shijojin, allowing Shijojin to turn defeat into victory. The four ministers were overjoyed and asked Luo Xiao what he wanted, and Luo Xiao proposed to be a successor disciple. Shijojin proposed 3 tests, and he completed them one by one, finally making Supreme unable to refuse. After listening to this, Hai Yunfan couldn't help but laugh. So that's how it is. Shijojin is addicted to chess and pays special attention to winning and losing. He has been an opponent of Black and White Ancestor for many years, but he lost more than he won. If someone can help him win a game, he may indeed get carried away and promise a very high reward. However, the last few tests are fine. The chess skills of Shijojin and Black and White Ancestor can be called the top level in 9 regions, and Black and White Ancestor has left behind the immortal list, so how could he participate in it? How could he help Shijojin win against Black and White Ancestor? Wang Lu said, maybe he is a peerless genius? Or he accidentally found an ancient chessboard and was possessed by the former chess saint. The problem of chess skill is not important, the important thing is this. Wang Lu pointed to a newly drawn chart, on which a number of upward curves were drawn with eye-catching colors. This is his progress in each project during the training period. What do you think? Hai Yunfan picked up the form and looked at it. It's probably amazing, Wang Lu said. Yes, his progress is not inferior to the lead disciples of the 5 uniques, and his talent is very comprehensive. Such talent is rare even in this era of talented people. Shijojin also saw this, so he reluctantly accepted a cultivator of humble birth as his true disciple. In that case, Luo Xiao is indeed a rare talent. Why don't you put aside your prejudice and make good use of his strength? Hai Yunfan said with a smile. Wang Lu did not answer. So far, apart from his intuition, he could not find any evidence to prove that there was anything wrong with Luo Xiao. However, although his intuition could convince him, it could not convince others. Even if it was Hai Yunfan, after listening to his intuition's explanation, he could only be skeptical. If it were a normal person, they would only think that Wang Lu was jealous of the talented and stirring up trouble. Therefore, there was no point in continuing to talk about it, so he simply shut up. Seeing Wang Lu's uneasy face, Hai Yunfan no longer entangled in this issue and said, tomorrow is the pre-match meeting with the Dixian, what else do you need to prepare? Wang Lu said, oh yes, good reminder, I almost forgot. Let me check the equipment. With that, Wang Lu rummaged through his mustard seed bag and took out the equipment and props to check one by one, including the Exterminate Immortal powder that could seal one's throat upon contact, the Golden Thunder Origin cone that could blow up a mountain into a plain, and the Spring Brother pill that could instantly replenish one's blood and chi. While Wang Lu rummaged through them, Hai Yunfan was in a cold sweat. Wang Lu, are you going to have a peaceful meeting or to provoke a dispute? Wang Lu was stunned. Little Hai, you've really become stupid from living at home. How could this pre-match meeting be a peaceful meeting? It must be a fight. Fight to show the momentum, fight to show the demeanor, fight to raise the morale, and then officially start the grand competition. You never said before that you're going to start a war with the Dixian today. Do I still need to say that? Little Hai, you as a secretary, can't learn to figure out the intention of your superior? After thinking about it briefly, this meeting is the last official meeting between the 2 sides before the grand competition. The next time they meet, the 2 sides will fight each other without recognizing each other. Do you want to test the real situation in advance? See what cards the other side has? And to test the real situation, is there any more effective way than to directly make a move? So you want to do it yourself? Otherwise, is there anyone more suitable than me? With the cultivation base of the King Pill level, I have been cultivating for less than 30 years. Whether I win or lose, both sides have a way out. And in the King Pill level, the top strength can ensure that my odds of winning against the Dixian are higher than others. In addition, my strong observation and analysis can ensure that I get the most abundant information in the fight. Finally, I am the chief planner of the plan. During this period of time, all the controversial plans were put forward by me. If I don't personally fight with the Earth Immortals, the doubts of those mediocre people will not stop. Hai Yunfan thought for a moment and said, actually, it doesn't have to be so troublesome. If you lose in the cross-level challenge and turn into a beautiful girl like the others, there will not be so many people who have opinions. Wang Lu waved his hand and said, "Forget it. My wisdom and beauty will only make more people despair, so there's no need to mention the matter of disguise anymore." With that, Wang Lu had checked all the equipment and props and put them into his mustard seed bag. After applying the seal on the mouth of the bag, Wang Lu's whole person had become murderous. Even Hai Yun Fan, as his secretary, could not help but take a few steps back. "Very good, at least we can't lose to the other side in momentum." As Wang Lu said that, he suddenly remembered something and put a piece of white cloth on the desk into his arms. Chapter 617. In the spacious hall of the Tombs of Immortals, the long silence rendered an indescribable atmosphere of awkwardness. Only the constantly churning white clouds under their feet created a bit of vitality for this space. The Wanxian League of 9 regions headed by Hichu Daoren and the Dixian led by Xian Mo walked in 2 distinct rows. The 2 sides ignored each other, their eyes did not touch each other, completely ignoring each other's existence. However, they cautiously restrained their own primordial spirit and magical power, not letting any of it leak out, as if they were infinitely reserved little girls, or women persecuted by extreme religious sections. Wang Lu highly suspected that if this road could be extended indefinitely, these people might really be able to walk until the end of their lifespan and the moment they died without turning their heads or communicating with each other. If they could capture the scene of the 2 sides' silence until death with a video recording spell, it could be sold at a sky-high price as a gimmick of political themes. Unfortunately, this awkward road soon came to an end. At the end of the white mist, the outline of a magnificent palace was revealed. At this time, the Dixian side finally broke the silence. "This is the venue of the grand competition, the entrance to the City of Immortals. As you can see, it is a huge venue designed according to your plan that can meet the needs of a variety of competitive events. It covers an area of more than hundreds of miles, has a height of more than 50 miles, and has more than 1,000 branches. Including the supporting facilities, all the indicators have met your standards. Among them, the arena can accommodate the fight of true immortals. As for the specific quality, you are welcome to visit it later." Xian Mo said and projected the structure of the venue for people to see. On the 9 regions side, he too and the others just watched in silence and did not comment on this magnificent venue. Based on their standpoint, it was really inconvenient for people to issue praises. However, even by the most demanding standards, it was difficult to say any negative comments on this huge venue. This stadium was not as simple as just having a grand scale. When the design was submitted, it was a sole formation perfected cultivator who was best at all kinds of engineering designs, under the overall guidance of Wang Lu, who proposed an almost impossible task. The construction difficulty was no less than that of the desolate desolation divine boat that was once proposed by Shengjing sect to be able to pass through the age of chaos tribulation, which was worth 1 billion spirit stones. This hall not only needed to be sturdy, but also able to accommodate the fight between the Dixian-level combatants. It also put forward very complex and specific requirements for other different projects. For example, the venue of the gourmet food competition required the storage room to be absolutely fresh. The venue of the big hunting match required the construction of a complete ecosystem. There were birds, beasts, plants, insects and fish, and it could circulate on its own. At that time, when the proposal was being deliberated, a member of the organizing committee had suggested that such a design was clearly a provocation and a slap in the face. However, Wang Lu said, even if those arrogant Dixian people were to slap themselves in the face, they would still insist on building this stadium. Moreover, if they agree to this design but can't implement it perfectly, then if we lose we can have an excuse. The reason was successfully blocked back. However, now it seemed that the latter reason was not needed. These Dixian people, with the help of the mysterious magical ability of creating things out of nothing in the Tomb of Immortals, actually completed this miracle in the history of architecture in just over a month. After a long time, Hichu Daoren sighed and said, "It's really hard for you guys." Xian Mo smiled. With the magical ability of creating things out of nothing, it's not hard at all. It's not as difficult as creating a world in the immortal dreamland. However, as soon as she finished speaking, she heard the Dixian Bai Zhe sneer. "Not hard at all? Xian Mo, it's really easy for you to say that. How could the creation of things be equal to the creation of things in the immortal dreamland? It would be good if we could build this city of immortals in the immortal dreamland. Unfortunately, these wastes are incompetent and suspicious, they refuse to believe us. If we have to create things out of nothing, then the magical power and energy consumed would be more than 100 times. Moreover, it's obviously you guys who proposed the design, but we are responsible for all the construction work. But you guys can take advantage of this time to do special training. What a good plan. Before his voice fell, he heard a young voice refute. At first, in order to design this set of drawings, our team worked hard for more than 10 days and nights, racking our brains. There were more than 30 designers who died from exhaustion, and there was even a Taoist master of deity stage whose primordial spirit collapsed and perished. And you guys just put in a bit of stupid effort. What qualifications do you have to pretend in front of us? Upon hearing this, Bai was furious. Nonsense. More than 30 people died from exhaustion with just a dozen design drawings? Do you think we're idiots? Wang Lu sneered. You don't believe me? Then you better watch carefully. With that, he took out a stack of files from his mustard seed bag, unfolded the top one, and then read, Taoist Master Mou, a member of the Standing Committee of the Wanxian League Design Association and an excellent comprehensive designer, unfortunately died in Evian Valley on XX day of XX year of 9 regions calendar at the age of 622. The funeral is scheduled to be held in Evian Valley on XX day of XX year. This is the obituary. With that, he showed the file in front of the people. On the file, there was a square red seal of the Wanxian League, which was particularly eye-catching. The obituary certified by the Wanxian League naturally could not be falsified. Even if the people of Dixian were still unfamiliar with this newly established organization, at least they knew that the authority of the organization was far higher than that of an individual, and the document stamped with the official seal was not a child's play. The people of 9 regions Wanxian League were also stunned, because even Hichu Daoren didn't know who this Taoist Master Mou was. They also didn't know why the seal of the Wanxian League would be stamped on such an inexplicable obituary. Just when everyone was stunned, Wang Lu opened the files one after another and read out the names of the deceased. Taoist Master Hong Luo, Taoist Master Jin Jing. Each obituary was stamped with a scarlet seal that symbolized the supreme authority of the Wanxian League. Every time they saw such an obituary, several supreme elders of 9 regions would involuntarily look at he too, but he too just raised his head high and turned a blind eye to it. It was completely unexpected that the leader of the Wanxian League was known for his rigid and serious work attitude. In the face of these unfortunate sacrifices of the deceased, do you have the face to continue to show off your so-called hard work? Wang Lu said, to solve the dispute between you and me in the way of the grand competition, and to integrate the forces of both sides to fight against Dixian with the minimum loss is the overall strategic situation that we currently face together. To this end, both of us need to constantly compromise to finally reach an agreement. And on our side, we have long been ready to compromise and even sacrifice. On the other hand, from the beginning to the end, you just want to swallow all the spoils of war without paying any price. Just a little bit of effort and you're already full of resentment. This kind of face is not only ridiculous but also shameful. Bai angrily said, who are you calling shameful? Wang Lu didn't say much and directly pushed more than 30 obituary notices in front of him. Come on, in the face of these obituary notices of the deceased, explain to me that your work is the most glorious. Bai was so angry that his qi and blood flowed in the opposite direction and his body exploded. However, when he finally managed to adjust his breath and was ready to launch a counterattack, Xianmo reached out to stop him and said, well, this kind of verbal dispute is meaningless. When we accepted the other party's complete set of proposals, it was tantamount to accepting the other party's use of this period of time to make various targeted arrangements. We have several times or even more than 10 times their strength and vision, so there's no need to be so calculative. Awal said, if it weren't for your immortal spirit aura, I would have thought that you're with them. Xianmo, everyone asked you to be the leader this time, not to let you lead us against the law. As always, Bai practiced his way of negation, but this time Xianmo was surprisingly tough. I've heard your opinion, so please keep your mouth shut. Bai eyelids obviously twitched. However, seeing Xianmo's firm posture, he could only sneer a few times. After Xianmo muted Bai, the atmosphere gradually warmed up a bit. Because the previous silence had been broken, the two sides could finally start a limited dialogue. Xianmo led he too and the others into the City of Immortals, introduced the facilities in the city one by one, and invited them to carry out a quality inspection. The 9 regions side was not polite and carried out the inspection according to the most stringent standards. The result proved that there was indeed no problem in the city. The frank attitude of the Dixian side had gained the trust of the 9 regions side. Thus, the following dialogue was smoother. The two sides began to exchange views on many details of the grand competition and reached a consensus. However, this peaceful dialogue was not the mainstream. When the group of people walked to the center of the City of Immortals and saw the most central venue in the city, the atmosphere suddenly became subtle. In the center of the City of Immortals was a vast arena with a radius of thousands of miles after space folding. In such a vast space, the Dixian side stuffed a complete spiritual vein with great magical power, which gave birth to natural landscapes such as mountains, rivers, and so on. At the same time, the arena was specially strengthened, so that even if a true immortal came and went all out, it would not cause the arena to collapse. This was a super arena that surpassed all the other arenas in the 9 regions in terms of specifications and standards. After witnessing and inspecting the attributes of the venue, the several supremes of 9 regions were amazed. The same venue was not impossible in 9 regions, but even a local tyrant sect like Xinjiang sect would not invest a lot of resources to create such a thing. The magical ability to create things out of nothing was really enviable. Since you are satisfied with this venue, why don't you take this opportunity to come in and experience it yourself? Xian Emo said as she walked into the arena. Her whole person was instantly pulled hundreds of miles away by the folded space, but her voice was still passed out without any hindrance. The several supremes looked at each other and knew that today's meeting had finally entered the main topic. After the Dixian side finished their etiquette, it was their turn to face each other. The leader, Xian Emo, was gentle all the way, but at this time she was the first to jump into the arena and fight against the 9 regions team. It could be seen that this battle had been planned for a long time by the Dixian side. Thus, the next battle was bound to be an earth-shattering one. He too was silent, but his body leaned forward slightly, ready to step forward. The other side sent their leader so they could not be underestimated. However, before he moved, a figure had already walked in front of him. Supreme, there is no need for someone of your level to personally take action in this battle. Just leave it to me. Wang Lu said and then turned his eyes to the arena. Senior Xian Emo, let me play with you this time. Chapter 618. This was the second time that Wang Lu and Xian Emo fought against each other. The last time was in the immortal dreamland, when Wang Lu and his master attacked the heavenly earth women's country. At that time Xian Emo unleashed the wrath of the heaven. Under the world-destroying thunder, not even a blade of grass grew. The master and disciple tried their best to persist until the end. And this time his master, the number 1 king pill in 9 regions, was not present. The opponent, Xian Emo, was in the perfect state after the combination of black and white. The gap in strength was 10 times or even 100 times larger than the previous time. However, when Wang Lu entered the arena, it was as if the victory was already in his grasp. Senior Xian Emo, let's fight for the second time. After seeing Wang Lu enter the arena, Xian Emo was slightly surprised. He thought that the opponent this time would be those supreme-level cultivators who symbolized the peak fighting power of 9 regions. Unexpectedly, the last one to enter the arena was a king pill kid. Are you serious? Xian Emo asked incredulously, do you really think you have a chance to win? Although you and your master are of the same lineage, even your master can only win against Bai Zhe in the king pill realm, but you? The kind-hearted Dixian girl was too embarrassed to say, compared to your master, you are not even as good as an ant, so she just euphemistically said, I'm really not that much weaker than Bai Zhe. Wang Lu did not know whether to laugh or cry. Senior, this is a big misunderstanding. You are also a dignified Dixian girl, yet you actually have the nerve to fight with me, a little fresh meat who has only cultivated for 30 years? This City of Immortals was built according to my plan and designed to provide a venue for the grand competition. Naturally, the fight in this place is also carried out according to the rules of the grand competition. Therefore, please limit your cultivation base to the King Pill realm, and let's have a King Pill battle. King Pill? Xian Emo was stunned again. So that's how it is. I thought you want to fight with me, but it turns out you also want to limit your cultivation base? Well, that's good too. It's just that I've almost forgotten how to suppress my strength. According to the rules of the grand competition, the Dixian needed to suppress their strength to the same level as their opponents. It was just that this kind of suppression was very particular about technique. For example, if a nascent soul Taoist master wanted to suppress himself to the King Pill realm, it would actually be very difficult to grasp the degree of control. Taoist Master King Pill, as the name implied, was a perfectly round King Pill in the Jade Mansion. It condensed the great Tao, traced the source, and had endless magical power. At the nascent soul realm, the primordial spirit would catalyze the King Pill, giving birth to vitality. After being cleansed of lead, the great Tao in the King Pill would be sublimated. The process was similar to a mother giving birth to a baby. From a tiny dot, it would eventually grow into a living being, hence the name nascent soul. However, this process was irreversible. In this world, there was no such thing as a baby turning into a tadpole. Naturally, cultivators could not compress their growing nascent soul into a king pill. Forcibly operating it would only cause the nascent soul to fall and the primordial spirit to collapse. This law could not be violated even if one had the cultivation base of Dixian. Therefore, the so-called cultivation base suppression was, in fact, to forcibly simulate the various abilities of the king pill cultivator with a stronger power. The magical power, primordial spirit, immortal heart, body, magical ability, and so on were simulated to the level of the Taoist master king pill. This kind of simulation naturally had its flaws. The higher the level of the cultivator, the more difficult it was to perfectly imitate the low-level details. If one was not careful, they would exceed the standard of the king pill in some aspects. And according to the rules of the grand competition, once a violation was made, it would be immediately judged as a loss. In the last battle between Wang Wu and Bai Zhe, strictly speaking, Bai Zhe was suspected of breaking through the limit when he used the immortal technique. How could an ordinary king pill use the immortal technique? It was just that battle was the battle to establish the prestige of 9 regions, and the rules of the level battle had not been recognized by Dixian. Thus, Bai Zhe was not forced to strictly abide by the rules. However, in this battle, Wang Lu did not intend to be so lenient. He really did not have the capital to be lenient. Fortunately, Xianemo was also very conscious. After thinking for a while, he said, "In my case, it is difficult to guarantee that all my attributes are perfectly limited to the level of the king pill, so let her play with you." With that, Xianemo took a gem hairpin from his head and touched the gem on the hairpin with his finger. The glittering and translucent ruby rolled down, turned in mid-air, and then turned into a beautiful girl who was exactly the same as Xianemo. "This is my king pill doppelganger. She has the same thinking and knowledge as me, but she is the real king pill. If you can win against her, you can win against me in the king pill realm." The doppelganger of king pill also smiled like a flower and said, "That being said, I'm actually just the master's plaything. Please be merciful." Wang Lu clicked his tongue and flicked the rouge tears in his hand, which made a crisp buzzing sound. Plaything? Perhaps, for Dixian, a doppelganger of king pill was just a plaything. However, as long as he could win, why should he care about other things? So what about being lenient? That could wait until after he won. Thereupon, while the buzzing sound of the rouge tears was still trembling, Wang Lu's sword chi had already burst out. His magical power output was almost crazy. The magical ability of the king pill realm, the incomparably violent primal chaos heaven-splitting sword chi, the rapidly expanding non-phase sword defense. Any one of these was enough to exhaust the magical power of an ordinary peak king pill cultivator in the blink of an eye. Even if the king pill was endlessly growing, it still couldn't supply the magical power. Moreover, the overly tyrannical output was even more dangerous. However, Wang Lu relied on his deep foundation and the supreme aptitude of the void spirit root to launch all 3 at once. In the twinkling of an eye, the aftermath of the momentum alone formed a whistling wave, which caused the world to change color. The complexion of Xianmo's king pill doppelganger also changed, no longer as calm as before. She was the doppelganger of Dixian, and her vision and skills were far higher than the ordinary king pill cultivators. If he fought with her skill, even if Wang Lu cultivated 2 immortal-level cultivation methods at the same time, he would still be no match for her. However, this unreasonable attack just hit her soft spot. As a doppelganger, her power was limited. At the same time, it was impossible for her to have the unprecedented void spirit root. Therefore, the power that could erupt in a short period of time was even more limited. The power of Wang Lu's tide-like attack was more than 10 times stronger than her. Moreover, with his magical ability, even the space was distorted. Therefore, even though she had the vision of a Dixian, she still felt a bit tricky at this time. It was really difficult to cook without rice. However, Dixian was, after all, Dixian. The girl's foot touched the ground, and her figure suddenly became distorted and transparent. Then, under the violent sword chi of Wang Lu, she was smashed into pieces. However, the fragments did not disappear. Instead, after floating in the air for a while, they scattered further and further away like dust, and then tried to reassemble. No matter how strong Wang Lu's sword chi was and how fine the particles were, these particles could always be reassembled under the drive of an invisible force. If one was not careful, a large number of fragments would gather into a lump. And when the lump was connected to each other, it would gradually condense into the outline of a human body. Wang Lu continued to expand the range of his attack, but the surging sword wind only made the fragments drift farther and farther away, and the aggregated lump became more and more elusive. Outside the arena, a supreme of 9 regions who was watching the fight could not help but exclaim, "Good method." She actually changed her own life form, which completely offset the fierce offensive of Wang Lu. But is this really the method of the King Pill cultivator? Xian Mo faintly smiled and said, "Of course it is. What she used is the way of the 3 living things, which can split herself into countless individuals, like sand, fog and all kinds of sharp weapons. With her King Pill stage she can perfectly control the 3rd level of flesh and blood avatar. Although it is difficult to hurt people with this, she will no longer be hurt by the sword chi. If you don't believe me, I can tell you the method of practicing this method. I won't lie openly about this kind of thing." "Won't be hurt by the sword chi?" "I'm afraid that fellow Taoist's words are not true enough." Hichu Daoren slightly narrowed his eyes and said softly, "Not to mention that the fog transformation technique is restrained by the 5 elements spell, the fact that she will not be hurt by the sword chi is only because Wang Lu's sword is not sharp enough. If his sword can be sharper, no matter how small the opponent is, he can accurately divide and destroy them. Presumably, you will not be able to regenerate." Xian Mo was silent for a while, then shook his head and said with a smile, "Fellow Taoist's eyes are like torches, truly admirable. This method of 3 living things indeed can't perfectly restrain all kinds of sharp weapons. If there is a sword cultivator with a heaven-defying realm, even if I transform into millions of avatars, I will still be shattered in one blow. For example, my brother Ming's heaven-splitting sword, I absolutely do not dare to use this method to block it. But for your King Pill Daoren, I'm afraid he can't refine such a pure sword intent." Hichu Daoren also nodded. "He is too distracted by chores in terms of the purity of his sword intent. He is indeed not the best in the world. But if you think that you can defeat him with this, I'm afraid you will be disappointed." Xian Mo asked, "Oh? His best sword chi is ineffective, and he may not have the time to use the 5 elements spell. Is there any way to turn the tables? Let's watch and find out." Xian Mo then waited curiously for Wang Lu's trump card to turn the tables. However, after waiting for a long time, he only saw Wang Lu constantly repeating his means, as if he had exhausted all his limited abilities. Non-phase sword defense, primal chaos sword chi, original magical ability, and even the props in his mustard seed bag were not taken out. At this time, Xian Mo's doppelganger, who had long been immune to these attacks, began to gradually stabilize his position, and continued to regenerate in places that Wang Lu could not take care of. If this continued, Wang Lu would eventually be exhausted. Even without waiting for him to be exhausted, as long as this violent offensive was slightly weakened, Xian Mo would immediately launch a counterattack. And the means of Dishen's doppelganger was not something that an ordinary King Pill could resist. However, after watching for a long time, Xian Mo's counterattack never happened. And Xian Mo's face gradually became surprised. The Supremes of 9 regions were also surprised. Wang Lu, this kid actually lasted for so long? From the beginning of the fight until now, he had been fighting for a full hour. For a common King Pill level fight, an hour was not a long time, but he had been crazily outputting his magical power for a full hour. If it was described as sexual intercourse, this was equivalent to the last moment of ejaculation for a full hour. Not to mention a peak King Pill, even if it was a Yuaning stage Taoist master, according to this efficiency, their magical power output would have long been crazy. However, Wang Lu was still as vigorous as a dragon and as fierce as a tiger, and there was not the slightest trace of fatigue on his face. On the other side, Xian Mo's doppelganger could not hold on any longer. No matter how brilliant the 3 begets all things magical ability was, this kind of forced life form transformation technique was, after all, against the heaven's will and needed to consume a considerable amount of magical power. As a King Pill level cultivator, her magical power could be continuously generated, but under Wang Lu's violent attack, her magical power output was more than her magical power output. And until now she thought that no matter what, it would be Wang Lu who would fall first. As a result, Wang Lu's endurance had broken through common sense. If this stalemate continued, she was afraid that the one who would lose would be her. And in this state she had no time to change her moves at all. Enough, I give up this game. Add a small tale. This book has been open to read on WeChat. Usually, there will be some new book news and short stories on the WeChat platform. You're welcome to follow. You can search for the Spirit Sword Mountain on the public account. Thank you everyone. By the way, the traditional Chinese book is available on Taobao. Chapter 619. When he came out of the arena, Wang Lu inwardly was somewhat glad. In fact, at the end of the fight he was like a dried-up oil lamp. A full hour of output. Such a feat, perhaps many people would feel kidney deficiency just by hearing it. As a cultivator with void spirit root, his magical power recovery speed and output efficiency were far higher than his peers. However, in a fight between cultivators, not only the magical power went in and out of the Jade Mansion, but also the participation of primordial spirit, immortal heart and physical body. Although Wang Lu's magical power was still abundant, his physical body and primordial spirit were somewhat unable to support it. Fortunately, in the end, Xian Mo's King Pill avatar gave up the fight. Perhaps her power had been exhausted, or perhaps in the face of a peerless man who could fiercely output for an hour, her heart was shaken and her fighting spirit was lost. In short, Wang Lu eventually won. After not seeing you for a while, your progress is really impressive. Outside the arena, Xian Mo was quite amazed by Wang Lu's cultivation base advancement. A few months ago, his performance in the immortal dreamland was still fresh in Xian Mo's memory. At that time, Wang Lu from the middle-grade King Pill had reached the sky in a single bound. Whether it was his swordsmanship or immortal heart, they were still shaky and quite unstable. It stood to reason that he needed at least a few years to stabilize his cultivation base and become a real King Pill expert. But at this time, regardless of whether he had stabilized his cultivation base or not, the strength he showed was more than twice as strong as a few months ago. A few months ago, it was absolutely impossible for Wang Lu to maintain such a high intensity of magical power output for an hour. This kind of endurance had completely exceeded the scope of normal understanding. Xian Mo's King Pill avatar clearly had the ability to restrain the sword qi, but it was actually suppressed to death by the opponent's sword qi. This kind of tortuous and bizarre fight, if it was before the fight, she would never believe it. Wang Lu also sighed in his heart. During this period of time, apart from dealing with official business, he did not neglect his own cultivation. Although he could not be compared to those madmen who cultivated day and night, such as Qianghua, Zhu Shiyao, etc., his progress was still very fast and did not lose to anyone else. However, this was still not enough. The King Pill doppelganger that could defeat Xian Mo was mostly due to the element of surprise. If it wasn't for the fact that Xian Mo thought that he could restrain a sword cultivator with just the power of the three begets all things, he wouldn't have been able to defeat Dixian, who had so many tricks up his sleeve. In the face of Wang Lu's first wave of ferocious attacks, Xian Mo directly gave up on resisting and used his doppelgangers to sustain himself. This was actually a wrong move. If they had to fight again, Wang Lu had no confidence that he could defeat his opponent, unless he was given a few more years to truly stand on the top position of King Pill. However, let alone a few years, the Dixian present probably wouldn't even give him a few days or even a few hours of leisure. After defeating Xian Mo, there were soon other people who started to make trouble. What a wonderful cooperation. Bai Zhe clapped his hands as he stood up and walked to the front of Xian Mo, staring at her coldly. Xian Mo, I can let it go before, but now you've gone too far, haven't you? Xian Mo also looked at him coldly. Bai Zhe, I haven't given you permission to speak. So what if you didn't give me permission? When everyone chose you as the leader, did they allow you to lose to a piece of trash who has cultivated for less than 30 years? Yes, you are the leader of all the Dixian in the Tomb of Immortals, so you have the authority to order and forbid. Therefore, when you told me to shut up, I didn't hesitate to do so. However, my respect for the authority of the leader is not without bottom line. Don't forget, even when the boss is still here, I still have the power to stop him when his behavior crosses the line. And now, because of your own selfishness, you disregard the public interest, which has gone far beyond the bottom line. Xian Mo tightly frowned. My own selfishness? Are you going to slander me? Bai Zhe said, slander? When you resuscitation from your sleep, your primordial spirit was split. It was those 9 regions people who helped you combine the two into one, which gave you a new lease of life. Therefore, since then, you have been kind to them in every possible way so that today, you don't even care about the face of Dixian and just handed over the victory. Losing just now is indeed my fault. Later, I will naturally apologize to everyone. However, it's not your turn to blame me. 3 months ago you also lost to a 9 regions King Pill. Bai Zhe said, yes, I did lose 3 months ago. That 9 regions King Pill is really powerful, I am convinced. But no matter how bad I am, I won't lose to this King Pill. Bai Zhe said and then pointed at Wang Lu with disdain. Xian Mo suddenly became angry. Bai Zhe, you've gone too far. Wang Lu also laughed. I, your father, am really unjustly implicated. But that's fine. Since you, Bai Zhe, have said it like this, then let's have a fight. Upon hearing this, Bai Zhe was stunned. You want to fight me? Yes, didn't you say that no matter how bad you are, you won't lose to me? Then come and prove it to me personally. Let me see how awesome you are. With that, Wang Lu directly stepped into the arena, leaving everyone with an unusually confident back. For a time, not to mention Bai Zhe and Shanemo, even Hichu Daoren and the other Supreme of 9 regions were stunned. He still wants to fight? He has just experienced a fierce battle. At this time, I'm afraid his physical strength hasn't fully recovered. How can he have the confidence to fight the next fight? Does he really think that his strength can beat Dixian? The last fight was obviously won by a fluke. He should know that he tried his best. Wang Lu has never been a reckless person. Perhaps he has a deeper meaning? Upon hearing this, Hichu Daoren shook his head. Fellow Taoists, you don't have to think so complicated. He just wants to fight again. Fight again? What? Because no matter whether you win or lose, it's not bad. If you win, needless to say, the morale of the 9 regions side will be greatly boosted. Even if you lose, at least you can learn more about the cards of Dixian. Moreover, in today's tentative fight, the result of 1 win and 1 loss is the easiest for both sides to accept. Hearing the explanation of Hichu, the Supremes could not help but sigh with emotion. At such a young age, Wang Lu already had the style of a great general. His consideration was so thorough, which was admirable. However, for the people in the arena, things were actually simpler than what Supreme Hichu had guessed. Because he felt that he had a chance of winning. If it were any other Dixian, Wang Lu would probably not start the fight again. Because he was indeed a little tired. It was difficult to continue the kind of violent fight that lasted for an hour. However, when the opponent was Bai Zhe, it was another matter. This Bai Zhui youth was born with a mocking face. As soon as he opened his mouth, people wanted to slap him in the face. Ignoring his provocation, Wang Lu's thoughts could not be smooth. Moreover, he had almost used up all his cards in the last fight with Wang Wu. The negation seal was indeed a very powerful immortal treasure, but after Wang Lu saw it once, it was no longer mysterious. Right now, he already had several plans in his mind, all of which could break the negation seal in the King Pill realm. Moreover, he also had other means. Before this fight, he had actually made quite adequate preparations. All kinds of props were piled up in his mustard seed bag, each with its own magical function. In the last fight, he almost didn't use these props to win, which was quite a pity. After Wang Lu entered the arena, Bai Zhe did not hesitate and followed him into the arena. Kid, since you're courting death, don't blame me for being merciless. After entering the arena, Bai Zhe immediately sacrificed the negation golden seal. 11 golden seals floated around him. Then he plucked the largest one and pushed it forward. With Dixian's means, the moment he entered the arena, he locked onto Wang Lu's position. He was 500 miles away from the edge of the arena, right in the center of the arena. Such a magnanimous attitude was indeed praiseworthy, but it was also extremely stupid. Bai Zhe was not as easy to talk to as Shanemo. After entering the arena, winning was his only goal. And what he wanted was a thunderous victory. Therefore, after locking onto Wang Lu's position, he directly used the largest negation seal in an attempt to erase his entire person from the arena. This move was ruthless. He really did not show any mercy. At the same time, he did not believe that with Wang Lu's ability, he could withstand the full blow of his negation immortal technique. However, the moment he made his move, a warning suddenly came from his primordial spirit, warning him that a great danger was about to descend. Bai Zhe immediately looked in the direction of his intuition, only to see 3 grayish golden awls aimed at him. This is Golden Thunder Origin Cone? Bai Zhe was shocked. He never thought that as soon as he entered the arena, he would encounter this kind of great killing weapon that was famous in 9 regions tens of thousands of years ago. This kind of weapon, which was made from the thunder of divine tribulation, only needed one to blow up a mountain range. Even a Taoist master of deity stage would find it difficult to escape unscathed. And now Bai Zhe was only in the King Pill stage. Moreover, he had just launched the negation seal and poured all his magical power into his immortal treasure, so it was too late for him to deal with these 3 golden thunder origin cones. In an instant, Bai Zhe gnashed his teeth and his eyes almost popped out of their sockets. No wonder Wang Lu entered the arena in such a carefree manner before. It turned out that he had specially set up such a trap for him. 3 golden thunder origin cones, what a big deal. These were precious props in the era of Dixian. Now they should be priceless. Yet he actually used as many as 3 of them in one go. It was the complete opposite of his master. However, it was just a daydream to use such a trick to defeat Dixian. Bai Zhe fiercely bit the tip of his tongue, and the negation seal in his hand shone brilliantly. The object of negation suddenly changed from Taoist Master King Pil, who was 500 miles away, to the Golden Thunder Origin Cone. The next moment, the Golden Cone, which was about to detonate all its power, was directly obliterated by the irresistible force and disappeared without a trace. Bai Zhe froze in place for 5 breaths of time before he realized that he had finally passed this disaster. At the critical moment, he used the negation immortal technique to negate the existence of the Golden Cone. Good. It's indeed impressive, but unfortunately it ends here. After all, the number of Golden Thunder Origin Cone was limited. Even if Wang Lu was the richest person in the world, it was impossible for him, a Taoist Master King Pil, to use too many golden cones at the same time. Stimulating this kind of hidden weapon that carried the power of the divine tribulation thunder was also a big burden for the user. Bai Zhe took a long breath, picked up the largest golden seal again, and then locked it to the place 500 miles away. This time, let's see what other means you have to escape. At this time, through the eyes of Dixian, he could clearly see Wang Lu's every move. This included the slightly surprised expression on his face after the golden all trap had failed, as well as the white flag that he had suddenly raised high in the air. You? Bai Zhe was shocked and angry at the same time. He actually surrendered? Seeing that he was about to win the undoubted victory with the negation seal, he actually surrendered? However, just as Bai Zhe was furious, a sharp sword chi suddenly stabbed at him. Before he could react, it had already cut his wrist. Continue to promote the WeChat public platform at the tail end. You can see it by searching for Spirit Sword Mountain in the past. Thank you for your support. Chapter 620. By the time he felt the sharp pain, Bai Zhe's wrist no longer belonged to him. The sharp sword energy directly broke through his protective technique and cut through his body in bones that were harder than metal and stone. After one strike, Bai Zhe's wrist was severed from the middle. The strike was too fast and too ruthless. In the blink of an eye, Bai Zhe had lost his wrist. But under the pain he calmed down like never before. He didn't consider whether Wang Lu's white flag was a fake surrender or how to deal with it according to the rules of the battle. He didn't even consider how to treat the wound on his wrist. It was easy to use the negation seal to negate the injury, regenerate the broken wrist, and suppress the chaotic immortal spirit chi in his body. But there was no time. The person who ambushed him with the sword energy was not far away from him. Using the Golden Thunder Chaos Cone as a cover, that person successfully avoided his senses and succeeded in a sneak attack at the critical moment. And an even more fatal attack was waiting for him. Compared to Wang Lu's white flag and the wound on his wrist, the sneak attacker who was close at hand was more important. At this moment, Bai Zhe's strength as a Dixian was displayed to the fullest. Even though he was in the middle of a series of traps, he still made a timely and effective response. His uninjured left hand picked up a negation seal and pushed it to the side. The immortal spirit chi condensed on the golden seal, and he activated his immortal technique. Although the immortal technique was activated in a hurry, at such a close distance, it was enough to wipe out a cultivator at the peak of King Pil in an instant. As expected, the moment he used the golden seal, there was a clanging sound beside him. Something was hit by the negation technique. But in the next moment, the sharp sword energy rushed toward him again. Bai Zhe quickly turned his wrist to erase the sword energy. But after using the immortal technique consecutively, he was already out of breath. At the same time he was a little shaken. Who on earth could take my negation technique head-on? In a trance, a white shadow flashed in front of him, and more than 10 sharp sword energies stabbed toward him from all directions. Could it be that bitch in white? The master and disciple had planned to fight 2 against 1. Bai Zhe clenched his teeth and raised a negation seal high up in the air. It created a huge image that looked like a seal and blocked all the sword chi. At the same time, he also accurately captured the figure of the ambusher. Surprisingly, the assailant was not the woman who defeated him 3 months ago. Although they were both dressed in white, this person's expression was cold, and her facial features were more delicate and elegant. They were definitely not the same person. Most importantly, she held a pink short sword in her hand, and the sword emitted a terrifying fluctuation. Shockingly, it was an immortal artifact. And that style, that aura. Rouge Tears. In an instant, Bai Zhe determined the identity of the attacker, Rouge Tears, who fought independently, and her sword spirit. It was no wonder that the negation seal was unable to defeat him. Under the King Pil realm, his celestial techniques could not do anything to celestial treasures. At the very least he could not write them off. When it came to the stability of existence, a king pill-level cultivator was far from being comparable to an immortal treasure. However, this did not mean that Bai Zhe had no way to deal with his opponent. The sword spirit of Rouge Tears had cut off his wrist, not because the opponent was strong, but because the sword had come too suddenly and unexpectedly. Once he stabilized his footing, it would be easy to deal with an immortal sword spirit that had not yet matured. Of course, using the negation immortal technique to obliterate was ineffective. To deal with an immortal treasure, he had to focus on suppression. So he put down the negation seal, stretched out his left hand and pressed down. The sword spirit autumn beam suddenly staggered, and the girl's eyebrows showed incredible shock. Just now, she had used the method of half-possession, and with the help of Rouge Tears' natural high speed, she had circled around Bai Zhe, looking for flaws. Ordinary king pill-level cultivators could not even catch her afterimage. But Bai Zhe just stretched out his hand and a huge force came down on her head. Even the space hundreds of feet around her was locked and she could not move at all. "You don't think I only have the negation immortal technique, do you?" Bai Zhe lightly said and then clenched his left hand. The sword spirit autumn beam screamed, and her body was involuntarily suppressed back into the body of Rouge Tears, unable to come out again. The pink dagger fell from mid-air, and its spiritual energy was completely lost. In addition to the way of negation, Bai Zhe as a Dixian had too many means. Suppressing an immortal treasure was just one of them. Let alone the object was Rouge Tears, the weapon that Xianemo had once used. In the group of immortal tombs, all the Dixian were brothers and sisters who treated each other with sincerity, so they were very familiar with each other's means. Therefore, Bai Zhe knew the characteristics and weaknesses of Rouge Tears like the back of his hand. With only his left hand, he suppressed the sword spirit autumn beam and made Rouge Tears fall from mid-air. However, on the way down, a powerful palm held it up. Wang Lu, Bai Zhe finally waited for the right person. After several rounds of delay from autumn beam, Wang Lu had already arrived from 500 miles away. Holding Rouge Tears in his right hand, he took a step forward, and his golden sword defense, like a landslide, pushed forward unstoppably. Bai Zhe inwardly sneered and at the same time, he once again took off the negation seal that was suspended beside him, ready to write off Wang Lu's sword chi in himself. However, as soon as he lifted his arm, he felt a numbness in his joints and his action slowed down. The Dixian's reaction was very fast. Bai Zhe's immortal spirit energy swept through his body and found the root cause. The poison first entered the body from the broken wrist, and now it was entrenched everywhere in the body. Exterminate immortal poison? At this time, the deadly poison, known to be able to seal the throat of an immortal, was running wildly in his body. Compared with the exterminate immortal poison that made people tremble with fear 10,000 years ago, this poison had a world of difference in lethality, but its concealment was far better. People who came from that era had a keen sense of touch for a few kinds of highly toxic poisons. However, this kind of poison that was close to the exterminate immortal poison had been in the body for a long time, and the toxicity began to take effect. In the past 16,000 years, 9 regions had indeed changed a lot. Unfortunately, in the end it was still mostly degenerated. If it was the real exterminate immortal poison, just a little bit would be enough to kill him. But now, he just had to waste a little bit of his immortal spirit energy to expel it. Bai Zhe's left hand was sore and numb, and he was no longer able to launch the negation seal. At the same time, the poison in his body spread, and it was difficult for him to fully summon his immortal spirit energy to defend. However, with a move of his feet, his figure had already retreated several miles away, easily avoiding Wang Lu's unstoppable non-phase sword defense. However, when his feet landed, Bai Zhe raised his head and saw a blood-red sky. In the tumbling and boiling blood cloud, thousands of sharp swords showed their loftiness. Damn it, it's really watertight. At this point, even Bai Zhe couldn't help but admire Wang Lu's successive means. From the moment he entered the arena, he began to set up the Golden Thunder Origin Cone, Immortal Sword Rouge Tears, Exterminate Immortal Poison, and this original magical ability to lure the enemy in. Every step of his was effective. He forced himself to be hit one after another. His wrist was broken, he was poisoned, and he was forced to retreat. The scene was even more embarrassing than when he faced Wang Wu 3 months ago. However, the victory still belongs to me. Bai Zhe roared, and then his figure was submerged by the thousands of sharp swords that fell from the sky. Those sharp swords contained Wang Lu's primal chaos heaven-splitting sword chi. Each sword was like a full blow from a Taoist master king pill. After thousands of bombardment, the place where Bai Zhe stood was cut by hundreds of feet, turning into a shocking deep valley. Anbai stood at the bottom of the valley, holding a blood-stained golden seal in his left hand, pointing it straight to the sky. His face was pale and his figure was shaking. However, under the bombardment of the flying swords, he seemed to be unscathed. At the critical moment, he forcibly launched the negation seal with his life-blood essence, negating all the flying swords that were about to hit him. Therefore, although the ground was blasted into a deep valley, he himself was safe and sound. However, the price of using his life-blood essence was actually quite high. His original body was Dixian. At this time, he suppressed his power and simulated himself as Taoist Master King Pil before entering the arena. No matter what injuries he suffered in the arena, once he walked out of the arena and recovered his cultivation, he would be able to recover in an instant. As for the consumption of magic power, it was a drop in the ocean for Dixian. However, life-blood essence was different. Once used, it was used and the loss was very difficult to recover. Moreover, using life-blood essence under the state of King Pil was simply an unforgivable waste. Most of the energy would be wasted in vain. But at that time Baize had no better way. There was more than one method to solve the problem, and life-blood essence was the one that consumed the least. However, the most difficult period was finally over. Now that he had gotten rid of the poison in his body, he could once again use the immortal chi. Therefore he put his left hand forward. The blood cloud in the sky instantly dissipated, and his broken right hand quickly grew back. The negation immortal technique was not his only technique, but it was the most useful and almost omnipotent technique. Relying on the negation immortal technique, he could even cycle endlessly in battle. No matter if he was seriously injured or his magic power was exhausted, he could use the negation seal to write it off. This kind of reversing cause and effect immortal technique allowed him to stand out among the many Dixian and become the second most powerful person, second only to the leader. Even though many people were quite dissatisfied with his character, they had no choice but to rank behind him. Of course, under the state of King Pil, Baize was still unable to achieve an endless cycle. Now he was already quite tired and battered. However, the initiative has been snatched back by him. Wang Lu's series of traps would eventually run out. Once these traps were gone, Baize was confident that he could end the fight in an instant when the two fought head-on. As long as he successfully used the negation immortal technique once, Wang Lu would not be able to withstand it. He definitely did not have the divine ability that Wang Wu had to carry her sword with her. However, just as Baize was about to activate the negation seal, he realized that the target had already disappeared without a trace. The entire arena within a radius of 1,000 miles had lost all traces of him. In disbelief, Baize used his hand to poke the space between his eyebrows and activated his divine sense with all his immortal chi. This time he did not even hesitate to wander on the edge of the rules and used a power that did not belong to the King Pil level. Under such a divine sense scan, it was impossible for any Taoist King Pil to hide. However, he still found nothing. It was as if Wang Lu had never existed. He had completely disappeared without a trace. Baize's body trembled slightly. Once again he used his finger to press the space between his eyebrows. Wave after wave of divine sense surged outwards. Within a radius of 1,000 miles, his divine sense ripples covered everything. Where the hell are you hiding? Come out now. Come out and fight me fair and square. Don't you want to prove that you are better than Dixian? Then prove it to me. What's the use of hiding? I will definitely find you. You can't hide. At the same time outside the arena, Wang Lu had been sitting leisurely in the lounge tasting tea and desserts. Tastes good. Xian Mo said, it's good that you're satisfied. This is the lounge that we prepared for all the contestants. All the facilities are built according to your design. With that, her eyes turned back. From time to time, there was still a sound of vibration coming from the arena, which was the anger of Baize. Wang Lu chuckled. Let's guess, how long will it take for that idiot to find out that I've already given up? Xian Mo sighed and declined to comment. Please pay attention to the WeChat public platform, search the public account to find that there used to be a Spirit Sword Mountain. Thank you for your support. Chapter 621. It was 2 days later when the 9 regions people left the Tombs of Immortals. The City of Immortals was magnificent and had many facilities. Even if it was just a cursory tour, it would take a lot of time. Not to mention that they had experienced 2 fierce battles in the arena in the center of the city, and the second one was particularly protracted. However, this long protracted battle had achieved gratifying results. The result of 1 win and 1 loss could be said to be not too bad. However, the win was already soul-stirring and the loss was even more so. As long as they thought of the situation in the second match, the Supremes could not help but laugh. After Wang Lu used all his means and traps to force Bai Zhe into a sorry state, he threw the white flag and gave up. It was just that, when he left he was very quiet, deliberately leaving Bai Zhe to roar in the arena for half a day. In the end, it was his Dixian companion who couldn't stand it anymore and came in to remind him that the battle was over. And at that time, Bai Zhe's expression was really worth the people in the arena to ponder for a long time, because it was hard to imagine that an immortal cultivator who had achieved the achievements of Dixian would show such a desperate, crazy, and distorted expression. Were it not for the fact that Dixian had a stable immortal heart, perhaps when he walked out of the arena, Bai Zhe's immortal heart would have collapsed and his primordial spirit would have collapsed. At least, the several Supremes present asked themselves that if they were in his place and were played like this, moreover, it was under the watchful eyes of the public, perhaps it would be very difficult for them to have the face to live in this world. Wang Lu, this kid is really shrewd. A Supreme of 9 regions sincerely sighed with emotion. Yes, although his cultivation base is also very strong, it's actually secondary. Another Supreme deeply felt the same way. In the battle against Shen Mo and Bai Zhe, Wang Lu showed shocking strength. In the first match against Shen Mo, his crushing posture left a deep impression on everyone. However, what was really worth paying attention to was the second battle. From the very beginning he had no chance of winning against Bai Zhe. There was a world of difference in strength and his opponent was not as easy to talk to as Shen Mo. However, Wang Lu had forcefully obtained a victory under such circumstances. That's right. Although it seemed that Wang Lu had given up and admitted defeat, anyone with eyes would know who the winner of that battle was. The meticulous and comprehensive pre-battle preparations, the interlocking traps, and the strategy of withdrawing and retreating at the right time were all the embodiment of battle wisdom. This kind of wisdom was definitely not just a flash of inspiration. In essence, it was a sea of calculations. A quick-witted person might not be scary, but a quick-witted person who was good at scheming was too scary. Lingjian School is really lucky. With such a disciple, the school will surely prosper in the next 100 years. They are full of talents. In addition to Wang Lu, the Zhu Shiyao and Lu Li also have peerless aptitude. In terms of cultivation they are not much inferior to Wang Lu. It's just that they lack his talent. Alas, in the past decades there have been many talented young cultivators in 9 regions, but there are not many who can really stand out. Unfortunately, our sect has tens of thousands of cultivators, but we don't even have such a disciple. Haha, fellow Taoist, you're belittling yourself. Your disciple Qing Yangzi is superior, not necessarily inferior to the lead disciples of the 5 uniques. I don't know how many people are envious of him. Upon hearing this, that Supreme shook his head. Originally, I did have high hopes for Qing Yangzi and I was even complacent. However, after seeing Wang Lu today, with that several other Supremes shook their heads. Each of them had a similar genius disciple, whose strength was far beyond that of their peers, worthy to be the future leader of a high-rank sect. However, compared with today's Wang Lu, the gap was too obvious. On the other side, Wang Lu himself couldn't be complacent at all. It was natural for him to perform better than his peers, because he was not really a peer in the real sense. He used to be the big brother of the golden generation of Lingjian School, a cultivator of the same generation as Feng Yin and the others. What was there to be proud of when he crushed a group of juniors? Moreover, in the eyes of others, his second fight was soul-stirring and skillful. But in the end he still lost. He had done his best in that fight. Whether it was the calculation before the fight or the means during the fight, he had done his best. Moreover, he rarely used a large number of external objects. The 3 golden thunder cones and the exterminate immortal powder were rare goods that he had spent a huge amount of public funds to raise. Even so, he could only force Bai Zhe into a sorry state. He couldn't really defeat his opponent. From the beginning to the end, he didn't even dare to let the opponent's negation seal hit him. Because he knew that he couldn't take it. The gap between Dixian and King Pill was so big that it almost made people desperate. However, Wang Lu would never easily despair. On the way back he repeatedly thought about it and in his heart there was a bit more hope. Compared to 3 months ago there's a world of difference. 3 months ago I thought that only Wang Wu had a chance to win in this King Pill group. The others were simply sent to die. But today, I after all have 1 win and 1 loss. And in terms of pure fighting power, I'm not the undisputed #1 in the King Pill group. The gap between me and Zhu Shiyao and Qianghua is only a hair's breadth. If I could have more time. Wang Lu further thought that if he could have a few more months to cultivate so that his non-phase method and primal chaos heaven-splitting sword could be promoted by several layers. Was there a second possibility in the last fight? Yes, in the fight with Bai Zhe he was actually very close to victory. If he could consolidate his strength and sublimate it, unfortunately there's no time. Fortunately they don't have time. In the group of immortal tombs, Dixian were also summarizing the gains and losses of the two fights. The first to speak was Xian Mo. Although she lost to Wang Lu in the fight, compared to Bai Zhe in the second fight, she won more recognition as the loser. Therefore, the concluding speech was also made by her. At this time, Xian Mo's face was solemn, and her expression was so cold that it could freeze the air, which was completely opposite to her previous gentle and elegant posture. They have shown a shocking rate of improvement. I even regret giving them 3 months to prepare for the battle. But this kind of regret is meaningless. What we need to do next is prepare to win every match and put an end to this pointless dispute. On the fighting side, according to today's 2 fights, they are running out of time. Wang Lu will not fight a fight that he is not sure of. The strength that he showed today should be the best card he has. There were only a few days left and it wasn't enough. As for the literary competition. With that, Xian Mo turned her gaze to one side. Luo Shui, how is your preparation? Is there any problem? A petite girl smiled sweetly. Don't worry. Xian Mo sighed. Fortunately we have you. If you didn't wake up, we really don't have the confidence to compete with the entire cultivators of 9 regions. Luo Shui smiled. With me there's definitely no problem in the literary competition. At this time a Dixian asked, although there's no doubt about Luo Shui's strength, there are so many things that need to be tested. Can she do it alone? Before his voice fell, they heard a charming girl's laughter. What do you mean by alone? A petite figure quietly appeared behind that Dixian and gently patted his shoulder. It was another Luo Shui. The number of people has never been a problem. While speaking, the third Luo Shui quietly appeared, and then the fourth, the fifth. There are less than 100 of our resuscitation companions, and less than half of them can be used. It's far from enough to compete with a large team of more than 2,000 people. Fortunately, they asked for a graded competition, dividing most of the events into different levels. Actually, this is actually beneficial to us. Yes, that's why I'm really looking forward to the grand competition in a few days. Yes, I'm looking forward to the official start of the grand competition. I'm looking forward to it. In Wang Lu's office in the lava valley behind Royal Soldier Sect, an uninvited guest in white constantly hindered the normal official business with all kinds of moaning and moaning. Soon, the owner of the office slapped the table to stop him and said, "Enough, you unruly person, get out of here. F***, you dog official, how could you be so arrogant and rude to the literary and artistic workers of 9 regions? How can a lowly person like you be considered a member of the literary circle? I'm the most popular idol of the year. I don't know how many young and ignorant cultivators call my name in their dreams. Murong Bing Li Night Charm Phoenix Yen Yuan Wu Air. Show me some respect." Call your name in their dreams? That's true. I don't know how many single cultivators rely on you to relieve the pain of loneliness. Unfortunately, every time they miss you, they inevitably cause the death of hundreds of millions of people. Half of the sin is on your head. I think you've already committed a heinous crime, so you'd better find a place to redeem yourself. While the two were quarreling, the third person in the office finally couldn't bear it anymore. Be quiet, you two. If you want to flirt, get out of here. Don't forget that there are people working here. The 2 people who quarreled immediately stopped and then looked at the third person in surprise. Little Hai actually rose up. Mutation, it's a real mutation. How could the always gentle and virtuous intellectual Hai Yun fan of 10,000 Arts sect become so irritable? In my opinion, it must be you, a dog official, who covets his handsome appearance and has done something improper to him. *T, I assign him all kinds of work every day so that he can get all-round experience. This kind of leader's love for his subordinates can be called as heavy as a mountain. Such a pure feeling, you actually slander me for coming out of the closet? Enough. Hai Yun fan slapped the table again. You two. Didn't you say that you want to discuss the countermeasures carefully? There are only 3 days left before the grand competition, but our progress is still a lot behind. Have you come up with a solution or not? Upon hearing this, Wang Lu smiled. Isn't it obvious? Looking at the 2 of us, of course, we found a way. Hai Yun fan somewhat suspiciously said, "Found a way? When?" Wang Lu said, "Just now, when she reported to me about her work, I suddenly had a brainwave and came up with it." Wang Wu also said, "I saw that he suddenly thought of it, and then he also thought of it. Hai Yunfan sighed. Have the two of you reached such a level of telepathy? Wang Wu said, what telepathy? I just looked at the written materials on his desk, determined the general scope, and then used my brain to think about it, and then I could come up with his idea. Hai Yunfan inwardly said, isn't this telepathy? So, what idea did you come up with? I remember that when we studied the plan for the grand competition, didn't you say that we couldn't find an opportunity to delay time? Wang Lu said, it's not that we couldn't find an opportunity, but we couldn't find an opportunity to delay enough time. Now we can barely do it. With that, he reached out and pointed at the plan book on the table, and then pressed his finger on one of the lines. Opening ceremony. Please pay attention to the WeChat public platform, search for Spirit Sword Mountain. By the way, I'm going to start to speed up my writing. I will add updates from time to time, please look forward to it. Chapter 622. Opening Ceremony? Hai Yunfan curiously looked in the direction of Wang Lu's finger. In the proposal, the opening ceremony was indeed designed. After all, the grand competition was a major event related to the future of 9 regions. Its main purpose was to promote cooperation between the two sides. Peace and development were the main lines, and the principle of the grand competition was friendship first, competition second. If the contestants were beaten all over the face, it would not be in line with the theme. Therefore, before the official start of the competition, an opening ceremony was added, in which people from both sides performed some entertainment programs to create a peaceful atmosphere. As for whether the principle of friendship first competition second could be maintained after the start of the competition, it could only be left to fate. Therefore, on the whole, the opening ceremony could only be regarded as an appetizer, which was insignificant in the context of the grand competition. Even Wang Lu himself didn't put much effort into this segment. It was enough for him to find an idol group to show his thigh on the stage. However, today when Wang Wu came to report to Wang Lu on behalf of the beauty contest team, Wang Lu happened to turn to this page when he flipped through the proposal book. Suddenly he had a flash of inspiration and thought of a way. In short, there is no time limit for the opening ceremony. Hai Yunfan froze for a moment, and then retorted, do you want to delay the opening ceremony indefinitely? But the program list needs to be jointly approved by both sides before the start of the show. Yes, so a program list of 5,000 programs will definitely be rejected by them. We must create infinite possibilities in the limited program. Hai Yunfan frowned. Limited program, infinite possibilities? At this time, Wang Lu was already full of inspiration. He immediately reached out and wrote a line on the table. Program, calligraphy performance, copying starting from 0. Hai Yunfan curiously said, I know calligraphy performance, but what is starting from 0? You'll know. Then Wang Lu wrote another line, program, group crosstalk New Year's greetings. I know that crosstalk is a form of entertainment that has gradually become popular in 9 regions in recent hundreds of years. For the Dixian people who have been sleeping for 16,000 years, it must be very new. But what's the mystery behind it? Wang Lu smiled. As I said, you'll know when the time comes. For now, forgive me for keeping it a secret. Seeing that Wang Lu was keeping him in suspense, Hai Yunfan shook his head and stopped asking. In any case, since he was so confident in his victory, there should be no need for others to worry. By the way, little Hai, only the 3 people in the room know about the opening ceremony. Don't mention it to anyone else. If you think you're not keeping it a secret, I can help you brainwash it. Hai Yunfan waved his hand. There's no need for that. You just promised me that you'd give me some time off after the tournament officially starts. Now that you've done this, I'm afraid there's no need for that. Wang Lu praised, little Hai, your thinking is becoming more and more meticulous. Then Wang Lu gave his master a look, indicating that they would discuss this topic in detail when they had time. Next, he would deal with the official business at hand step by step. By the way, have you finished counting those cross-dressing people that I mentioned before? Wang Wu said, of course I remember it clearly. How could I lose this kind of black material? More than a month ago, Wang Lu designed a group competition. The loser would have to cross-dress as a punishment. However, when it was actually implemented, due to various reasons, one of the important reasons was that the shocking performance of the King of 10,000 Beasts had brought a serious psychological shadow to everyone, there was no time to organize a large-scale tour for those cross-dressing people. Thus, the effect of the punishment was actually limited. Later on, many people thought that the so-called cross-dressing was just a verbal statement and could not be actually implemented. Thus their fear of it was put down. In a sense, the progress of the last month's assault did not fully meet the requirements of Wang Lu. However, this certainly did not mean that Wang Lu really intended to let them go. Indeed, the resistance to the implementation of this policy was very, very big. Because according to his design, except for a very small number of geniuses, almost everyone would inevitably be defeated. Could it be that these thousands of elite talents in the 9 regions would have to cross-dress? In particular, it might involve supreme-level cultivators, which was even more difficult to implement. However, it was precisely because of the difficulty of implementation that it should be firmly implemented. If supreme-level cultivators could take the lead in cross-dressing, who else would dare to put up any resistance? Unfortunately, even with the ability of Wang Lu, he failed to persuade He Tu before. After all, there were also many elders in Shengjing sect who were on the cross-dressing list, and he too himself was also under a lot of pressure. However, at that time Wang Lu was fighting alone. Now, he had his master by his side, and her ability to act was quite vigorous. Wang Wu had clearly recorded down all the people who had lost in the previous classification competition, so that when she had the time later, she could look for them to settle the accounts in detail. There was a lot of room for arbitrage here. According to Wang Lu's rules, those who were defeated in the group competition had to cross-dress. If they were defeated in the senior group, the punishment would be tripled. Then how should the benchmark number be defined? How should the so-called tripling be implemented? At present, the more mature plan was to include the cross-dressing people in the negative incentive group of the cheerleaders. If they lost once, they would be scheduled to perform in the future. Not long ago, under the vigorous promotion of Wang Wu, this plan was finally acquiesced by Supreme He Tuesday. Then the problem was, performing in the same shameful cross-dressing state, performing in the martial arts competition that countless people paid attention to, and performing in an obscure event with only 2 or 3 spectators were 2 different concepts. And the ones who decided the performance list of the cheerleaders was, of course, Wang Wu and Wang Lu, the pair of master and disciple. In Wang Wu's view, the operating space here was all profit space. As long as those who were quick-witted gave Wang Wu a piece of their heart in time, then the task on the performance list could be a bit easier. And those who didn't know how to appreciate favors could only perform the wonderful cross-dressing in front of thousands of people. After the 2 discussed the details of the performance, they instructed Hai Yunfan to draft a notice, asking those who were on the cross-dressing list to accurately understand the spirit of the superior and pay the bribe in full and in time so as not to humiliate themselves. Of course, the words must be vague enough so as not to be caught. Hai Yunfan was tongue-tied for a long time, but in the end he was helpless. He buried his head and thought hard about how to write this article that was destined to be nailed to the pillar of historical shame. While Hai Yunfan was immersed in his work, Wang Wu thought of something and asked, "According to you, the big competition arena in the center of the City of Immortals can isolate the inside from the outside. Therefore you've been away for so long that Bai Zhe couldn't find out. In such a venue, I'm afraid the effect of the cheerleaders can't be reflected." It doesn't matter. When the venue was designed, there was room for the cheerleaders. You can use this as a reason to ask them to open this function, so don't worry. But I remember, according to the work arrangement, before the official start of the competition, I have to trouble your beauty contest group to perform a public performance. How is the preparation going now? Wang Wu patted her chest and said, "Rest assured, the handsome men and beautiful women have been properly trained and used." Wang Lu asked suspiciously, "Used? How to use it? Have you used it before?" "Nonsense, if I don't personally inspect the goods, how can I feel at ease pushing them to the front of the stage?" "How many have you tested?" Wang Wu counted with her fingers and said, "The girls have basically been tested, and the men are all exempted. I asked Miao Yan to be in charge of it." "Your sense of responsibility is really touching." Wang Wu snorted and said, "Very well, I'll go and test the men's group. I guarantee that you'll have lush green on top of your head. What do you think?" While the 2 were talking, they heard an angry slap on the table next to them. "You 2 bitches flirt with each other, go out and do it. Think about how I feel when I haven't seen my Taoist companion for a long time because of my busy official business." Being accused by Hai Yunfan in such a righteous manner, the master and disciple of non-phase had to flee with laughter. When he walked out of the office, Wang Lu was slightly absent-minded and felt that his shoulder was light for no reason. At this time, it was only 2 days before the start of the grand competition. Most of the training events had stopped, waiting for the contestants to recover their spirit and officially appear on the stage. Therefore, there were not many things that needed him to deal with for a while. This made the chief planner, who had been busy for several months, feel quite uncomfortable. Let's just relax today. According to your idea, I'm afraid we're going to be busy again. Wang Wu patted her disciple on the shoulder and said with emotion. If the plan to delay the opening ceremony could be implemented smoothly, it meant that the people of 9 regions would have more time for training, and as the chief planner, he would naturally be busy. However, at least in these 2 days he could relax a little. Why don't you come with me to watch the rehearsal of the beauty contest group? We have all the beauties from all over the world here, and they are carefully trained. The previous 2 rehearsals have made many successful cultivators unable to restrain themselves. Wang Lu smiled. And then you catch them in a disgraceful state and then blackmail them for ransom? Wang Wu laughed and said, nonsense. Then let's take a look. Speaking of which, I've been so busy recently that I haven't had the time to pay attention to this beautiful team that has attracted the attention of all the cultivators in the world. It is said that Little Bai has been selected? Wang Wu said, you really don't care about my career. Not to mention Little Bai, even Lu Li and Yao Er can't run away. I've caught all of them to fill the team, forming a group of girls under Yuanying's stage. This is an opportunity to become famous in the world. How could I let outsiders take advantage of it? Upon hearing this, Wang Lu was surprised. You're not going to take the opportunity to inspect the goods, are you? Wang Wu asked in reply, when did you become so forgetful? If you want to inspect the goods, I've already inspected them. If I hadn't used the telepathic finger to inspect all the goods in the Ask the Heavens, do you think you could be as free and unfettered as you are now? You would have long been reduced to a vulgar family man like that Hai Yunfan. From inside the room came Hai Yunfan's roar, you 2 bitches, get away from me. Wang Wu laughed and flew away with Wang Lu on her sword. In midair she said, let's go see the results of my work. There's a surprise. Wang Lu said helplessly, all right, there's nothing else to do now anyway. Chapter 623. It's really an eye-opener. When walking out of the beautiful hall, Wang Lu felt that his steps were a little unsteady. With his current King Pill Peak cultivation base, there were very few scenes that could make him unable to maintain his balance. It could be seen how shocked he was in the beautiful hall. He thought that with the experience of 2 lives, he would have a very high resistance to these sensual things. As a result, of course, he had the resistance, but the temptation of the girl heavenly group, which had been carefully trained by Wang Wu and Miao Yen, was no small matter. Especially when he saw many familiar faces in unfamiliar clothes, smiling like flowers on the stage, that scene really made people's hearts beat faster. Wang Lu had never seen such a passionate Qianghua. She was wearing an apricot yellow shirt and underskirt, and her snow-white arms and legs were exposed. The immortal sword in her hand was in the shape of an immortal dew, and she danced on the stage. Although the sword was fast, it showed the gentleness of a young girl. Combined with the arrogance and indifference that inadvertently revealed on her face, there was a strange charm that could make people fall head over heels for her. Wang Lu had also never seen Zhu Shiyao, who looked like a daughter of a humble family. The young girl had changed her dress that was full of awe-inspiring sword intent, and wore a loose long dress that set off a bit of a scholarly air. A pair of exquisitely designed rimless glasses rested on the bridge of her nose. She sat upright in front of the desk and her brush moved like a dragon. Although every word she wrote looked like a sharp sword that had been unsheathed, compared to Zhu Shiyao's usual temperament, it still seemed a lot softer. The appearance, clothes, and even every move of the person on the stage had been carefully designed, and every frown and smile was full of beauty. But it was not a vulgar charm which made the audience pleasing to the eye but not lust. Of course that was what they said. But when the last performance began, the atmosphere in the hall suddenly changed. Even though the performance had been over for a long time, thinking back, Wang Lu was still in a trance and his footsteps were unsteady. Behind him, Wang Wu, who was dressed casually, covered her mouth and teased. Yo, young man, I see that your steps are weak and your center of gravity is shaky. Did you accidentally lose some of your bodily fluids in a moment of passion in the beautiful hall? Wang Lu turned around and scolded, you want to defame me while I'm going to the toilet? It doesn't matter if you went to the toilet. The key is what you did in the toilet. Wang Wu smiled as she walked up to Wang Lu and put her arm around his shoulder. How did it feel? The Girl Heavenly Group's swimsuit exhibition? Only insiders are allowed to watch this performance. Wang Lu also sighed with emotion. It's okay for others, but you actually made Qianghua and Zhu Shiyao change into swimsuits. You're amazing. Ah, what's so difficult about it? Yao is the most innocent. I told her that this is a mystical cultivation method and she believed me. As for Qianghua, I had a sword fight with her and after I won she agreed to cooperate with me. Wang Lu thought about it and felt that this guy really knew how to effectively grasp the weaknesses of human nature. Of course, on the other hand, the weaknesses of those girls were too obvious and easy to grasp. Anyway, you've seen the performance. Next, I have a few small things that I need your help with. Wang Lu's heart trembled. Did you think that the performance just now was a bribe to me? And then you expect me to use my authority as the chief planner to help you for personal gain? Wang Wu said, it's not a bribe, it's a threat. So, the reason why I wasn't allowed to appear in the audience during the entire performance was because you didn't tell them that I would be coming? Well, it makes sense. If they knew that there were men in the audience, they probably wouldn't have been so bold in their performance. I thought it was because you trained them well, but it turns out that it was a trap. So, if you don't want to be killed by those girls, you'd better cooperate? Wang Lu thought for a moment. If that's the case, all right, then the budget of your splendid hall will be halved. Especially the procurement projects, they will be submitted to me for approval before they can be implemented. Wang Wu's beautiful face turned pale. Are you trying to kill me together? That's right, I've never negotiated with terrorists. Either you stop or you die together. In any case, if the girls come looking for me, I'll just take responsibility for them. When the time comes, it'll be your head that's dyed green. Wang Wu touched her head and gritted her teeth. You're ruthless enough. After solving this episode, Wang Lu returned to his office in the sunset. Although it was only half a day's time, the leisure in the beautiful hall made him feel refreshed and refreshed. Only in this way could he better cope with the situation in the last 2 days. There were still 2 days before the grand competition, but the entire 9 regions had become tense. Wang Lu was in the valley behind Royal Soldier Sect, isolated from the rest of the world. However, the smell of gunpowder seemed to linger in his nose. The lava valley of Royal Soldier Sect was the training ground for many fighting groups. In the past few days, the atmosphere was particularly tense. Many cultivators were like prisoners on death row. They had finished their training early and sat cross-legged in the valley to meditate, as if they were facing death calmly, waiting for their punishment. Unfortunately, this time, everyone's expectation will probably fall short. Thinking of the victory and defeat in the City of Immortals a few days ago, Wang Lu felt that if those men of sacrifice who were unafraid of death really went on the stage, they would really die without a burial place as they wished. In just 3 months of preparation time, even if all the mechanisms were used, it would still be difficult to make up for the difference between 9 regions cultivators and Dixian cultivators. Therefore, all the means that could be used now must be used even if the side effects were great. Wang Lu sat down and then began to write the plan for the opening ceremony 2 days later. This time he didn't even need Hai Yunfan to write. Hai Yunfan was thinking hard about the plan for cross-dressing. And with only 2 days before the opening ceremony, Wang Lu could not afford to waste time. The plan was completed in one go. In just a cup of tea's time, the tens of thousands of words manuscript had been freshly produced. The speed of Taoist Master King Pill's hand was far better than that of ordinary people, not to mention that Wang Lu basically used a spell. After thinking about the wording in his mind, the paper was full of ink. After writing the manuscript, Wang Lu didn't have time to proofread it, nor did he intend to polish it. He directly sealed it in his pocket and then took the manuscript with him to Shengjing Sect through the transmission array of Royal Soldier Sect. His transmission array was specially authorized to go directly to the core of the sect. As soon as he left Royal Soldier Sect, he went directly to Hichu Doran's study room. There were only a few people in the entire 9 regions who had this honor. Wang Lu's amazing performance in this grand competition really made his status advance by leaps and bounds. In the study room, Hichu Daoran was facing a map of 9 regions in silence. Sensing that Wang Lu had come in, Hichu raised his head and a smile appeared on his face. What's the matter? To be able to make Supreme Hichu, who had always been serious and strict, show such kind countenance was a privilege that even Qianghua Fairy did not have. Therefore, many 9 regions cultivators were speculating about what kind of secret Wang Lu and Hichu had. Was it related to this matter that Hichu had been single for many years? Or perhaps Wang Lu's eyebrows seemed to be vaguely similar to Hichu's when he was young. In fact, the two of them certainly had no secret. Hichu was more friendly to Wang Lu than to Qianghua, not because he valued Wang Lu more than Qianghua. After all, Wang Lu was just an outsider. It was just because Wang Lu's temperament was somewhat amenable to coaxing but not coercion, while Qianghua preferred to do official business. Therefore, Hichu just treated Wang Lu in the most correct way. He was the leader of Xinjing sect, the #1 sect in 9 regions. At the same time, he was also the leader of the Wanxian League, which needed to look at 9 regions and seek the welfare of hundreds of millions of cultivators. In many people's view, the so-called Wanxian League was just a prop used by the high-rank sects to suppress 9 regions, and the leader of the Wanxian League only considered the interests of a very small number of people. However, he too had never thought of it that way. In his position, he was very serious in everything he did. Therefore, when he thought that Qianghua could inherit his mantle and lead Xinjing sect to continue to be the leader of the immortal cultivation world in the future, he stood his ground and spared no effort to support her. He taught her the most brilliant method, gave her the almost supreme kill immortal sword, and mobilized all the resources of the sect to train her into an otherworldly fairy. This was the decision of the leader of Xinjing sect. Similarly, when he determined that Wang Lu could shine in this grand competition and play an irreplaceable role, he would also spare no effort to help him. He gave him all the conveniences within his authority. It was not that he liked Wang Lu, but because as the leader of the Wanxian League he thought that this was more beneficial to the Wanxian League. However, after reading Wang Lu's proposal, this supreme who had deep confidence in Wang Lu frowned slightly and remained silent. After a long time Hichu asked, 2 days? No, now it's only a day and a half. To meet the above conditions we have to make a big move. Wang Lu said, then let's make a big move. Isn't the establishment of this organizing committee to lead and integrate the resources of 9 regions so that we can make a big move when needed? For the grand competition, no matter how big the price is, we have to pay. He too thought for a while and then looked at the manuscript in his hand. The key to the problem is not us. Wang Lu said, yes, no matter how big of a battle we set up and how many programs we prepare, if the other party refuses to accept this long opening ceremony, it would be meaningless. But I have thought about this, it's just that some things are not convenient to put in words. Hichu repeated, not convenient to put in words? Then do you know what kind of pressure you have to bear? Wang Lu said with a smile, what kind of treatment have I enjoyed in the past few months? Rights and obligations always match each other. I still have this awareness. He too nodded with relief. Very well, then I approve it. Just do it. With that, the golden seal, which symbolized the supreme authority of the Wanxian League, was printed on Wang Lu's manuscript. A new week has begun, first update on Monday. Please follow me on WeChat. Search for the previous Spirit Sword Mountain, and also ask for a few recommendation votes and monthly votes. Chapter 624. 2 days later, there was a sea of people outside the group of immortal tombs. The grand competition, which determined the future of 9 regions, finally officially kicked off. The cultivators of 9 regions gathered in Plentiful City. The people directly related to the grand competition had been stationed in the City of Immortals in batches a few days ago. Now, most of the people who came were enthusiastic onlookers. In addition to cultivators, there were more mortals in Plentiful City. After all, cultivators had high and low cultivation base. Those King Pill Yuanying stage cultivators could eat and sleep in the open. However, cultivators with low cultivation base had to rely on mortals to solve their basic necessities. Most of the permanent residents of Plentiful City outside the group of immortal tombs were now mortals. They came here from thousands of miles away to provide various services to cultivators and also enjoy the cultivators' feedback. As the grand competition approached, there were more and more floating people from all over 9 regions. There were already millions of mortals. On the day before the grand competition began, the place closest to the group of immortal tombs was crowded. Cultivators and mortals were mixed together. On the ground and in the air there were people everywhere. It didn't matter if you were a Taoist master of Jindan stage or a chef in the mortal world, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference in this sea of people. Naturally, there would be cultivators who complained about the Wanxian League's policy of equal treatment. In addition to those who were directly related and stationed in advance, the grand competition was open to all people in 9 regions, whether they were cultivators or mortals, righteous path or evil path, and even visitors from outside 9 regions were also welcome. As long as they entered the City of Immortal through the gate of the group of immortal tombs, they could freely watch all the competitions and even freely use the food and materials. Therefore, at this time, there were even many famine refugees who gathered in Plentiful City, which added a lot of chaos to Plentiful City. A cultivator who was blocked by the crowd a few miles away from the gate could not help but complain, "Damn, what is the organizing committee thinking? Treating cultivators equally is one thing, but how could they even let mortals in? What does this grand competition have to do with them? Do they want us, the immortal cultivators, to perform for the mortals? What a scandal. As he said that, he resisted the thick and suffocating smell around him, the sweat and breath of mortals, and the greasy smell of some people walking on the street while eating. When mixed together, even he, a Shudan stage cultivator, could not bear it. Beside him, his junior brother also complained, "I really don't understand what that fellow called Wang Lu is thinking. I heard that he made everyone suffer a lot during this period of time." Since Wang Lu became the chief planner, his endless stream of fantastic ideas really made the cultivators of 9 regions complain incessantly, especially the elite team of 2,000 people who were not included in the list of the competition. In order to gain the strength to rival Dixian in a short period of time, Wang Lu had really used all the methods he could use. The controversial cross-dressing was only one of them. Many more creative methods made countless people want to have sex with him. Apart from the remarkable results, he himself also had to bear a great deal of pressure from the public. Even those who were not qualified to participate in the training knew that there was a Taoist Master King Pil in the 9 regions who did things that did not follow common sense and caused the wrath of the heaven and the resentment of the people. Damn it, when this grand competition is over, I must find him to settle accounts. At least waste 10 years of his cultivation base. 10 years is too cheap. A lawless person like him must sit quietly in the death chamber for 100 years. As the two were discussing with indignation, suddenly a thick and powerful hand appeared on each of their shoulders. In an instant, the core energy in the jade mansion of the 2 Shudan stage cultivators condensed, and their tempered bodies trembled endlessly. The two wanted to look back but found that their heads had long been out of control. Then a buzzing sound came into their ears. "You two don't even deserve to lick Wang Lu's shoes, so don't talk nonsense here." "Sir, who exactly are you? Don't ask me who I am. You two don't deserve to know. I just want to tell you that you are lucky to meet me this time." Although Wang Lu is controversial, there are also many people who have received his kindness. If it were someone else, killing you 2 little Shudan stage cultivators would be a piece of cake. The rules of Plentiful City can't save your lives. As soon as the voice fell, the 2 Shudan stage cultivators felt that their shoulders were lightened. The sudden change made their center of gravity unstable, their legs weak, and their whole body's magical power could not be raised. Thus they plopped down on the ground. However, when they suddenly sat down in the crowd, their fate was self-evident. Soon a large number of footprints appeared on their bodies. The 2 of them were trampled into a sorry state. Although it was not very painful, their cultivator's dignity was naturally gone. They wanted to look up to see the person's figure and face, but they could only capture a majestic and burly figure from the shadows of countless pairs of soles. Why do I think that person is wearing a skirt? Probably because you've been trampled by a heroine in a skirt. By the way, I'm really about to be trampled to death. Come and help me. Ah, which son of AB asterisk TCH deliberately stepped on my face? The little son of AB asterisk TCH who deliberately stepped on the 2 people's faces, with a smirk on his face, slid through the sea of people while holding a silk bag in his hand. The boy's name was Shu Si, 14 years old, and he was a refugee in Plentiful City. A few years ago he came to Plentiful City with a group of traveling merchants. Later the traveling merchants left, but he stayed and did some short-term work in various shops in the suburbs of the city. Although Shu Si was not tall, his limbs were slender, and his pair of clever hands were the most flexible. Some merchants took pity on him because his parents died when he was young, so they gave him some errands from time to time. But soon people found that although this boy's hands were clever, he was skillful in stealing things. The place where he worked would always inexplicably lose something. It might not be very precious, but it always made the shop unlucky. Shu Si's hands and feet were nimble. He did not leave any evidence in Plentiful City for more than half a year, but no shop was willing to give him anything. Having lost his proper livelihood, Shu Si simply became a gangster and seriously engaged in the pickpocketing business. He became a disciple of a gangster boss in the suburbs. Relying on his cleverness, he lived a comfortable life. He always knew who he could touch and who he could not touch. In particular, he saw several of his companions who were blind enough to provoke immortal cultivators. Their limbs were broken on the spot, and even half of their 3 souls and 7 spirits were hooked away. He was even more cautious in doing things. He would rather have less harvest and be sprayed by the gangster boss than be refined into a demonic tool, which was worse than death. However, in the past 2 days the situation in Plentiful City changed. A large number of people came, and the orderly situation in the past was no longer there. Seeing the opportunity, Shu Si boldly made his move and gained some harvest. Especially on this day when the entrance of the group of immortal tombs was fully opened, the city was filled with people. Many monitoring arrays were overwhelmed and failed. In order to maintain the basic order, the city launched a sealing array, restricting the cultivators from using their cultivation base at will. Thus, these gangsters were even more unrestrained and lawless in the city. Just like the two shoot-on-stage cultivators just now, when it came to strength, they could casually stretch out a finger and crush 100 Wuxia to death. But now they could only be stuck in the crowd, and their mustard seed bag was stolen by an ant-like little thief. Wuxia, how's the harvest? At this time, Wuxia was hiding in a corner, weighing the mustard seed bag. Suddenly, he heard the voice of his companion. He turned around and saw that it was his scoundrel friend. The youth was delighted. He lifted the corner of his gown and saw more than 10 brocade pouches that were exquisitely tied inside. His companion sucked in a mouthful of cold air. How dare you? These are all cultivators' things, aren't you afraid that they'll track you down and hook your soul? Wuxia chuckled. Who would want to find a cultivator who could hook people's soul? I'm a fool. Don't look at those cultivators who are so high and mighty. In fact, there are many idiots among them. Many of them have cultivated to the point that they became stupid, so they don't have any awareness of defense. You just hide and wait for them to make your move, you'll be fine. His companion was envious. I don't have your courage. But you can't open these cultivators' things, so what's the use of them? If I can't open them, someone else can. Have you forgotten that dead face in the west of the city? He only accepts cultivators' things. Moreover, once you give them to him, it has nothing to do with you and absolutely no one will look for you. But Dead Face went through the door. Wuxia was suddenly dumbfounded. He went through that big stone door? The so-called big stone door naturally referred to the entrance of the group of immortal tombs. This door was usually only open to cultivators with the permission of the excavation management. As for the mortals of Plentiful City, although they could see the towering magnificent door every day and night, they never had the chance to go in and see its true appearance. In the past few days, a lot of people have gone to that big stone door. In addition to Dead Face, there's also that old Taoist and green and peach blossom lady. Wuxia was even more dumbfounded. Why did all the people who are willing to harvest leave? However, the youth immediately rolled his eyes and made a decision. That's right, I'm going too. You're going too. His companion was stunned. What are you going to do? Boss said that no one is allowed to go in. Be careful not to cause trouble and implicate everyone. Wuxia spat out, that useless coward listened to his fart. He even implicates everyone. When I found the spirit stones and exchanged them with Dead Face, how come he's not afraid of implicating everyone? I'm going. I heard that the big stone door is full of immortals. If there's an immortal who likes me, even if he doesn't accept me as a disciple, he can just give me 2 immortal elixirs, and I don't need to be a gangster anymore. In your dreams. Humph, didn't you hear a few days ago in the tea house, an expert said that if people don't have dreams, what's the difference between them and salted fish? Salted fish can be eaten, but can people eat it? Wuxia narrowed his eyes and didn't speak. The taste of human flesh was actually not that novel. After a while, he said with a smile, in any case, I'm going. If you follow me when the time comes, we can become immortals together. But even if you don't follow me later on, when I become an immortal, I will not forget your benefits. His companion knew that he had made up his mind, so he no longer tried to persuade him. Alas, I wish you good luck. Relying on his flexible skill, Wuxia forced his way through the crowded crowd and finally arrived at the entrance of the group of immortal tombs in the evening. This gate, which had been continuously expanded, was now several miles wide. Its top towered into the sky, like the mouth of a giant prehistoric beast, constantly devouring thousands of creatures. Wuxia swallowed his saliva in front of the gate and then mixed into the crowd to enter. Behind the gate was a brand new world. The second update has been sent. Thank you, Great Alliance leaders. Piao Hong reward. By the way, continue to ask for WeChat's attention. Search for Spirit Sword Mountain or His Majesty the King. Please help promote the WeChat platform, thank you. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.